All right, hello folks. Let's get started. Harish doesn't need any intro, but if by any chance you live under a rock, have you heard of an app called CRED? Yeah? All right.
Hi guys, and for whoever kept this pillow, thank you. I don't have to tuck my stomach anymore because I'm on camera. But thanks for coming on a Sunday morning.
Sorry, one second.
Yeah?
I think they want us to switch.
Yes, please.
करते हैं switch camera.
Okay, all right. So sorry.
No worries, man.
I'll take the pillow. So you've always spoken about art and design being the same thing for you, and there are two kind of people: those who believe that's true and those who believe that's not true. I come from a background where I would believe that they are separate, but the more I thought about what you're talking about, and especially the argument coming from you as an artist and a designer, I have to take that seriously. So I want to know more about what makes you say that, what are the kind of experience you had.
So yeah, I have met both kinds of people, and I will tell you why I believe what I believe in. Clearly, with an emphasis on the fact that it's a belief system, and much like any belief system in the world, you have legitimacy for both of them. So I have to caveat it that way and then start talking. See, look, I will keep aside the fact that I am an artist. That's more of an accident, much like how I became a designer. Also, we'll come to that. But 2 to 3 things about art I believe that is misunderstood is it is most often said by non-artists. So generally, art is considered a selfish pursuit. The critical argument that you see against art, especially when it is pitted against design, is that art is a selfish pursuit. B, art has no real reason to fulfill any specific goal. It is very free form and flowing, and hence
Expressive.
It's just expression, and generally it is not measurable. And the third thing that I generally hear about art is that art can be achieved with just one person in the equation, and while design always has more than one person in the equation. These are the arguments that I have generally heard. So I will try to answer this from my sense. I'll go in reverse chronology. Art has really no existence in practical life if there was only one person in it. We do several self-fulfilling things in our life. For example, we do things only for us. Why specific to art? We do things only for us. A lot of things that we do. Sometimes we just cook for ourselves. And when somebody else comes in, we actually order in. And sometimes we just, some people play chess with themselves. And it's just that it kind of tickles their brain. So through our life, we do things only for ourselves. But art becomes art in the sense that we know is only when it is projected and when it is observed and felt and perceived and reacted to by people, and it generates a multitude of emotions, multitudes of projections and perceptions, and sometimes it also changes the way the society looks at things. So the long story and the short, art has a purpose. Every art has purpose. Some art cascades far and wide. And that is where the parallel to design is. So design also could be just that I've just designed something for me to make things comfortable for me at home, versus I created something for a whole bunch of people. So the first point is, art is not a self-fulfilling pursuit. Art has people that are deeply touched by it. And you would realize, I don't want to go in circles around art. The second point is, art doesn't solve problems. Design solves problems. This is the second argument I keep getting. This is where I have a rather controversial or unpopular opinion. I do not believe that design is a problem-solving faculty at all. I think problem-solving, unfortunately, is engineering talk, in my opinion. I am an engineer. Because engineers are more people who identify a problem like a problem, and then they apply solutions to problem. While designers, the primary ask, which I don't see in a lot of designers, unfortunately, and I really very passionately come and speak about it. A lot of designers who come as problem solvers have become people who only solve for problems. It is a bit like a cardiologist only fixing for your heart. It is very important for a cardiologist to know that the person has to be alive after the heart surgery. You can't quite say operation successful, patient died.
Right.
Like, you can't quite, oh, I fixed for the heart is pumping right now, but the person's brain is dead right now. The problem with designers being problem solvers is you look like life very unit level, while art can't do that. Art can't generally think, oh, it is nice for Shreya, as my daughter, it is nice for her ears. I don't, because now you can't argue ear is what you use to listen to music is a stupid argument. You listen to music holistically. It is the person that enjoys the art. So you have to place the person at the pedestal. So problem solving, even if you're doing, it has to be for the person and not for the problem. If you're doing it for the person, then it's not a problem. See, and secondly, problems don't have an independent existence, correct? Can you say problem? No, we have a problem. Human beings have a problem, and we are warm and fuzzy people. We like to be. I'll give you a few more analogies. Like, you are too young to have children, but some of you may. Have you ever seen a pediatrician give an injection to a child? There's always a carrot and stick approach, right? Before the injection goes in, a lollipop is given, or a toy is given. So that's art, basically. The child does not understand the rational value of a vaccination. Does she? She doesn't. It's like, oh, you won't get polio if you got this. Like, look, that's not even. Here is the lollipop. So for me, art does that, which is, and I believe design should do that. Like, what is the point in me singing a song? Like, if you ask me that question, I'll stop singing, right? Like, I sang a really nice song and everybody said, like, oh, Harish, what problem did you solve? I solved several problems. I killed boredom. I gave you happiness. I probably increased happy hormones in your body. I helped the story move forward. Have you ever imagined an elevator without elevator music? People with claustrophobia will actually have a huge problem. Now, you ask me, why is there music in a lobby? But music is there in the lobby primarily because a lot of people actually feel anxious in surroundings where other strangers are present. So I can give you, and now you ask me, did art solve for anything? Yeah, 100%. So the point is, which is why I don't like this thick line that is drawn between design and art. I think it's a convoluted argument by people who don't understand art, which I think is okay. Everybody needn't understand everything. But in a fair sense, for me, art is connecting with humans. Design also connects with humans. And they are very analogous. And this does not mean, like, instead of actually putting a call to action button, I put Mona Lisa over there. That is not using art to solve problems. That's stupidity. See, every time this is like you take the burqa bikini argument, nothing will work. So there is always a line in the middle, right, where you understand what is the right purpose of using art. So Siddharth, the short answer is, I don't want to get too rhetorical. I believe art and design are the same because they innately solve for the same individual, that is the human. I think what art touches is humans, what design touches is humans. And if you are actually assuming selfishness is what makes you say, don't use art and design together, designers can be quite selfish. Which is why dark patterns exist. Right. Designers can be quite selfish. That is why you make users do things that they don't want to do. So don't call art selfish. It is the designer or the artist that is selfish. Art or design themselves are innately forms that are created to touch humans in a positive way. And as designers, I think if art helps you, use art. My argument has always been, don't diss art to become a designer. I don't want to become an artist, it's okay. Like, it's fine. I mean, like, look, I really want to do Bharatanatyam, but can't. But if I started by dissing that form, then there is a problem. Because I don't understand Bharatanatyam. For a lot of designers, my only request is, try understanding art, appreciate it, look at what artists go through, because there is nothing in the world that is as analogous to art as design is. So that is all my position is. And then form an opinion, hey, art is not for me. I want to keep it super duper pragmatic and I want to solve it and I don't want to bring artistic principles for the human that I am touching. Yeah, sure. Who's going to stop you? But what I dislike is taking a philosophical position of saying design is not art. The art and design are very similar crafts, and a person like me, I apply artistic principles into design. And I have done okay. So, fine.
Makes a ton of sense, and it makes sense that both of them, now that you mention it, deal with humans, like you mentioned. They connect with humans, and humans are not rational creatures. our behaviors are not rational. I remember in one of the podcasts that if your parents took that approach, you wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
So, like, what is the utility this child is solving? That wouldn't work.
What problem? You just created a problem in turn.
So, and you know, that often goes into pure utilitarian argument versus, I have always, seen one phrase that comes out whenever somebody's talking to you again and again. I want to dig in deeper about that, what that means to you, and how do you define that? That is meaningful art, right? You often talk about beauty, but more than beauty, you seem to talk about meaning in art, right? Don't just solve a problem, just put up, just fix plumbing, but, go find out why that issue is there and create for it. Would you like to elaborate on that?
No, absolutely. Thank you for asking, man. I think very, very thoughtful of you. Thank you so much. I think it is something that I very, very passionately feel for, and an opportunity to come clear on this one is also helpful. Look, purpose and meaning is different for every individual, and I think we live on that basis, right? Like, what is eventually that you want to get to versus what I want to get to are different things, but it's important that we all pursue it with some goal, some purpose. What we forget about design, what I mean by meaningful art is, look at the individual that is at the consumption end of it. It is not to impress that person, but humans tend to, I'll tell you, humans tend to appreciate effort a lot. Something that designers tend to forget. When humans are, as a society, built to appreciate collective effort. That's why we survive and succeed as a society. And many a time, design somehow reduces the need for humans to understand and appreciate the journey as much as the destination, which results in transactionality in your head. Which is why gratitude is lost. Most of the products don't have any loyalty because you're not even built for gratitude. How does gratitude come? Let's say, for example, there is a person that is helping you with your food every day. Like, somebody cooks for you. Like, I have a person that cooks for me. There are two ways that you can look at cooking as a craft, right? One is the food is great. I ate it. I felt good. Hence, you have your job. And then one day I ate it. I did not like it. I call another person to cook. I did not like it. I call another person to cook. Right? There's no end to doing that. On the other hand, a person that cooks for you, look at his journey. There is something that goes into crafting that food that he or she makes for you, and give that gratitude back, and the person will give the gratitude back to you, right? Like, you actually say, this is great. This is fantastic. You did well. Or you say something like, okay, the salt was a little more. Maybe you should readjust that. This is something that we are all so conditioned. And meaningful art is about creating something for you and you appreciating the person for what they created for you, with a square focus on the creation and not just the outcome. Outcome for movies, is box office success only the outcome? And then probably Nawazuddin Siddiqui might never be considered a good actor, right? Because he hasn't had the box office outcomes like a Shah Rukh Khan or whoever. So in my head, loyalty and retention in products do not come because they are built with a transactional state of mind, because you will only consider a successful outcome as the purpose of that product, which is why we switch apps like nobody's business, which is why we delete them the moment the space runs out. How many times have you deleted a photograph instead of an app when your phone space runs out? You wouldn't delete a photograph, even if it remotely has a friend of yours whose face is blurred on it also. You will think, I'll just go and check an app that I'm not using too often. I will delete it. You know why we do that? Because the photograph has a purpose. The photo has an individual. It has got a journey. It has got a story behind it, which is why I keep telling meaningful art is about taking people through a journey. Everything that we do today, if you started celebrating the journey as much as the outcome, then those journeys stick. If you have only outcomes that you're measured on, the journeys don't stick. When the journeys don't stick, those products will have no retention. Which is why we still trek our way up to a lot of places. If trekking our way up had no meaning, we would have taken the most efficient way of commute, which is probably taking a chopper, if you have the money, or going. And there exist people who take a chopper, there exist people who trek, there exist people who say, I don't want to goddamn go to the mountain at all. I'll probably see it on mid-journey, right? So you can't quite say it is for everyone, but when you have given people a journey to embark on, and that journey sticks, it will give you high retention because humans and businesses are tightly coupled on their wanting to be part of a journey. So the only reason why I say create something meaningfully, because meaningful journeys will be remembered. Meaningless journeys will not be remembered, which is why I said meaningful friction is a good thing. Meaningless friction is a bad thing. But unfortunately, in design, you are taught friction is a bad thing. In design, you are taught more steps are a bad thing. More meaningful steps are a good thing. More meaningless steps are a bad thing, which is why I put a lot of emphasis when I say create things meaningfully. And trust me, you don't need design education for that. Nobody here needs design education for that. You know what is meaningful. A lot of you all woke up on the morning of a Sunday, took a taxi ride, auto ride, bike ride, car ride to come to Growth School headquarters today morning because that journey was meaningful to you. And many of you would network today after this session because that activity is meaningful to you. So we are innately wired to understand meaning, and design should continue to provide you for that meaning. But unfortunately, we are generally taught point A to point B. Success is about the person achieving something and departing. Any product that makes you achieve something and depart is a product that you will always not remember. Which is why I keep saying, and meaningful journeys don't mean they are hundreds of miles. They could be sporadic, they could be momentary, they could be like things that just happened once in a while, right? So but having that attitude as a creator is very important. And I'll take a small example. It's a longish answer. You know why A.R. Rahman's music broke so hard in the 90s? Because the music in that time was actually Ilaiyaraaja, Anu Malik, Nadeem Shravan, too old stuff for many of you. But if you have gone back to 90s music, you'll understand. What A.R. Rahman did was added meaningful silence to a lot of songs. And you can take a lot of examples. When I hear Ye Hasi Wadiyan, it has a backing instrument only for about 1/3 of the time of the entire song. Remaining time, it is just voices and ASMR. It was not known ASMR at that time, but only that. So what I'm trying to understand is, like, unless you have that perspective in your head as to what journey are you taking the user through, it is not going to stick. Which is why Rahman's song are played even today, and some of the other songs that came in the 90s are not played as often today. So this is, I could, like, I'm a talker, so I could just keep going on this, but I just don't want to be excessively rhetorical. But this is, I think, a not so concise answer to your question.
I like the not so concise answers. They help us, understand more. Yeah. And you seem to talk about, design, like all of us are taught about, design is taught in terms of screens. But I specifically heard you, and here as well, we can hear you talking about in moments of time. You talk about, like, design as taking reference from cinema, but how far do you want to take that? Because it seems like you're not using that as an analogy, but that's literally the framework you're thinking in. And when it comes to, then it's easier to understand, because then you're trying to have moments of time with certain emotions. It's not about how quickly can you do, like, Raja Rani Khatam Kahani, and it's the journey in between.
Yeah, again, Sid, thanks again. I think this is turning out to be super duper meaningful for me as well.
Okay.
Because it actually lets me ponder some of the things that I say in short format, and I might learn a few things when I expand them today.
Right.
So thank you. Look, I think I have always thought about everything we do as an activity at a point in time. And all of us will agree. I don't think I need to sell that concept, right? Like, our life is all about these moments where we do things. And when design really started getting formalized, if anybody is in research in this room, or anybody who is in the early stage of design planning, we use the word user journey. Like, the word in English in that itself is journey. It is a traveling from a point one to point through, and the journey is important. If the journey was not important, it would have been just. But you know what we end up doing? We then break it down into, like, frames, which is why eventually we say, I'm going to make screens for this user journey. It's almost like saying, like, my life is like a journey from my birth to death, but I'm going to take like 20 photographs at different points in time in my life, which I deem important, and then put it up and call it life. It doesn't really sound like life. Like, life is a continuum. And what we do, and how, when a user downloads your software or hits your website, it's a journey he's embarking on. That journey has a lot of things that are in transit, and it's fluidly transient, which is why I take the cinema analogy. So if you are making a movie, you're going to release that, I could actually email you a synopsis.
Yeah.
It's very efficient. ChatGPT will generate that to you. So, and I could argue, read that synopsis, you know what I'm creating. Then why the hell are these guys making teasers and trailers? Because teasers actually tell you what the journey is going to look like. Trailer takes you through that journey with the salient frames that we spoke, so that you are now conditioned emotionally that, oh, if the 2 seconds felt this great, if the 20 seconds felt this great, the 2.5 hours is going to feel great. Like, so, which is why, see, when people say onboarding journey, you are onboarding to your software. Like, how do you onboard a guest into your house? Imagine if you gave your uncle a set of printouts onto your left bedroom, straight down drawing room, to your right hand side the washroom. Oh, sorry, we don't have a wash basin, so please go into the powder room. You don't do that. We onboard an individual into the house, and that has got random questions that you ask them, and random moments of delight, of discovery that you tell them. Like a small child, you say, "Oh, beta, you found the switch all by yourself. That's so cool." That is this thing. So, creating a journey in a cinematic sense is taking the person through that journey, which is why I invest in motion on my 0th day. So the first designer, if I have a chance of hiring, is a motion designer. Because it's very, very easy for me to tell a story in English. And what motion designers typically do is they actually choreograph that for you. Now, the motion designer may not know your Hicks law. He may not know your, even I don't know what Hicks law is. I mean, they may not know the rules of proximity. They may not know the rules of likeness. I mean, I also don't know. But a motion designer would know how to take a person from point A to point B with moments of delight, because they think in delight. Because a trailer editor has only 2 minutes to tell a story of 2.5 hours. And he has to still keep the intrigue, and he has to get the person to use the product after that, which is why I heavily invest in motion as a designer when I start. So for me, moments of meaning, moments of delight, and a choreographed sequence of things that you go through, which you can nicely recollect, will make a product incredibly good at onboarding. And one product, I wouldn't speak about my product, but if that's exactly what Duolingo did to me. Duolingo never felt like an onboarding. Because I used it a long time ago. My daughter is now using it. She gave me the exact same feedback. I have a preteen daughter. She said the same thing. It didn't feel like I signed up for something that will teach me language. So for me, user journeys being told as stories, much like how you write it in English. A lot of researchers or early design professionals here would have written those persona stories. Like, Janet woke up in the morning, she opened the app and she's looking for this. We do all that. Unfortunately, then comes a class of designers who are then looking to remove all the detail and try to abstract that into what are known as screens, which is why an unfortunate word that we use in design a lot. Unfortunate because I feel it is unfortunate, and I say unpopular things because A, too old, and B, hard-formed opinions. I don't know why anybody should navigate an app. Do you navigate your home? Navigation is always to places that you do not know. The places that you know, you don't navigate to them. But all apps are told, fix for the navigation. Don't fix for navigation. Show it once. If it is logical, if it is memorable, the person will find it again. If it is not logical, it is not memorable, you can put a sitemap, you can hyper label the shit out of it, you can put a coach mark pointing a finger at that, you can increase the size of it, you can remove everything around it. Won't work. That's because humans don't navigate. You don't navigate anything. You hate navigating. Navigators are people who went to oceans. You know where the word navigation comes from, because ocean is like a bright, broad place. You can navigate only because there's a freaking compass, and you had to turn. You're building for 320 by 840, man. Oh, what will you navigate? And how hard is your problem that I have to help you navigate my... When do we say navigating a problem? The problem has to be very hard. That's when you navigate a problem. Otherwise, you're just... So basically, movies, do you say, I'm navigating scenes? Would you ever hear a movie director say that? Oh, I have to navigate from the fight sequence to the song sequence. So, which is the reason why I take cinematic examples and motion examples and journey examples a lot in my creative work, because sometimes humans just need to be told once. And if that journey that you take the person through once is memorable, is intuitive, and intuitive is important, right? I mean, most unintuitive things generally don't stick. If it's an intuitive thing, and intuitive is unfortunately often misunderstood. Intuitive does not mean without any training you need to know. That's an unfortunate hypersimplification of intuitive. Intuitive is after it is told to you, can you repeat it without assistance? Is intuitive. Like, every time you encounter something the first time, it may not be intuitive. You wouldn't know how to use it. Escalators are a classic example. They're not intuitive. Somebody has to first hold your hand and say, hey, this damn thing keeps moving. Place your feet after the yellow line, and then you stand. Then you feel a moment of delight. Hey, I know how to go on an escalator right now. Next time, some people, for example, my mom took some 17 attempts. I took 3, my daughter took 1. And that's just human fallacy of people taking differential amount of times to learn something. So do not confuse intuitive to something that has to be beaten down to bare minimum, that the person has to be able to understand it without any help. Humans take help all the time. See, intuitive for me is understanding something after somebody points that out to you once. And I will pause here. The other thing in design is like, there is linearity and non-linearity in design. Like, unfortunately, a lot of us are forced to build linear because linear is easy. But linear is boring. If every movie that you watched was linear, you wouldn't watch them again. Non-linearity brings that intrigue. And Siddharth, I'll pause this. And a lot of designers actually think that their aim is to get the customer or the user to do something and make him depart. A lot of designers actually think that's what you're hired for. Your company will be shut very soon if you design like that. So don't be too altruistic about the customer. And it's almost like a salesman saying, sir, ye shirt mat lo, bahut zyada margin hai. It's a very altruistic thing to say, but then the shop will sell nothing. So it is important to understand, which is what movies also do. Like if I actually told you a synopsis of what is going to happen in the end, oh, but by the way, the movie is really nice, please watch it. So you hold back information because it is important for you to take to the place that you need to go. So see, which is why for me, screens are a bad idea to tell a story. Eventually, unfortunately, things will become screens. But think with a choreography state of mind than a navigation state of mind. I think if you did that, I think you will definitely build more engaging products. That has been my experience. That's been my view.
Amazing. So I'm so tempted to dig in further with, especially, like you almost came close to talking about in terms of music as well, because that's what we do in music as well.
Yep.
And the system of Navarasas, the ancient craft, teaches us that.
Absolutely.
Is that something that you take that, you use that as well as a reference?
Not directly, man, but I think the only principle of music that I apply in my work as a designer, slightly different tangent, but again, important to speak about. One thing that we all forget, not just designers, humans in general, is that we live for validation. How much ever you argue, you don't need it. You need it. And I, of one, for the time and life that I'm in, I believe it is an important vector that humans need to optimize for. We all have an extreme need to be validated for what we do, which is why sometimes we work in systems where appreciation comes in abundance than than some of the more pronouncedly material things that comes our way. Like somebody who treats you like really badly, but gives you like 10 rupees more is not a place which will have higher retention, because validation is something that we genuinely seek. The second one is we like to be applauded, which is a form of validation. We also like to applaud. When you hear a person sing really well, instinctively you clap, because that's how we are as a species. It requires a very special kind of moron to hold back. You have them, but they are few and far between. Like, just staying away from them is a good idea. So what art taught me is, when you know you're doing something which will get you the applause, you will put your best foot forward. You won't be sloppy. You will give attention and focus to things that you do. Because when you're being sloppy, you will be identified and called out for that. And in art, you don't quite say, I have learned 2 steps of this song. Let me do it for you and please give me feedback कि पूरा सीखने के बाद ये dance अच्छा बनेगा क्या? Which is why it's a very controversial, I'll come to that later. You always need to do the full dance. Then people will say the step was what? That is bad and your expressions were bad. And then you go and practice the full dance again and put out the full dance again, then put out the full dance again. The 4th time people are like, damn, your practice shows, your craft shows, your focus shows, your costume shows, and your presentation shows. Great show. Design is exactly the same. Which is why you should always design like it was a performance. If you always designed like it was a performance, you will never be sloppy. You will never say margin padding अगले release में adjust करेंगे. You will never say visual design can be done later, because right now let me show the customer what is possible. Which again goes back to my notion of why design is art. Because in art you can't do that. I can't say, oh, today's dance performance, sorry, my tailor has not given the costumes, I'll come in jeans and t-shirt and do Bharatanatyam. It's quite weird. Nobody would do that. You might probably get a slightly different quality material, which can be stitched fast, but it has to still look like Bharatanatyam costume, right? Like, I can't quite come and say I'll sing Oo Antava instead of a Carnatic song, because that's what I'm ready with right now. And eventually it will become a Carnatic music song. So designers, unfortunately, are taught the stupidity that ship what you can very quickly and the customer will now tell you whether he will eventually buy it or not. First of all, the customer doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't even remember you. He will say something nice just because he has had a good day with his girlfriend the previous night. And he might just say the opposite because the somebody, a Swiggy guy came and tailed his car. Right? Look, so customer doesn't know. You know what is good craft. You know what is your product is. Design like you have to ship it tomorrow. And will you say it was... See, every time a designer has to say, oh, it is not ready, we are still working on it, but take a look at it. Don't. You've not decided. And look, constraints are a reality in life. If there were no constraints, you wouldn't be attending this design talk at all. There are better things to do in life. So don't blame it on constraints. Constraints are never going to go away. So why I apply performance and art into design is that performance is a responsibility. Performance is a commitment. And performance, unlike what we generally blame design art for being very self-fulfilling, the commitment that an artist at a performance to the people who paid money to come and watch him or her is significantly higher than the commitment that an app designer puts into his app because, hey, we can A/B test always. In art, I can't A/B test. I am the damn release. That performance is the damn release, which is why being an artist is always safer alongside being a designer, because you will always think life offers you no A/B tests in a real performance. And the need for validation will make us work hard. The need for appreciation will make us work hard, which is why I have strongly said, think about it like a performance that you will put up and your performance will improve. Your first performance is not that great, but your 6th performance, it will be fantastic. But every one of them is a performance with appropriate constraints. So the constraint should not take it away from the fact that it is a performance. Which is why I generally say that talking about design is cheap. Designing is very, very hard. which is why I generally also don't like a lot of designers who only talk.
Makes a ton of sense. And, you've brought us right to the heels of my next question, which is it takes time, to create. And we were just talking about constraint. And usually, more often than not, there is a person sitting on your head, just ship something tomorrow, just ship something tomorrow. We have to go, right? And the biggest constraint of all, which usually comes into picture, is that we don't have infinite budgets to wait infinite time. So how do you balance that? Of course, part of it can come from practice, but how do you balance that when you're getting started? When do you know?
Great. Look, I have learned this the hard way. I have worked in all kinds of environments, and just north of 2 decades is what I've spent on the industry. And I have gotten managers of all kinds. I've gotten bosses of all nature, and fortunately, the right ones more often than the wrong ones. But that's a good fortune I landed. But then, look, there's a person called Ramon Tizen. You can look him up. I think that's how his name is pronounced. He used to be a principal designer of Photoshop. I spent a long time in Adobe, and there's another person called Vincent Hardy. Vincent is actually one of the senior most people in the SVG ecosystem. I think he has done a ton of work building SVG as a format. I was fortunate to get about 7 to 8 months working with him. So one thing that both of them told me in different articulation has stuck with me. And I was just 23 or 24 then. 20 years down the line, it's still stuck with me. Basically, in our life, everything is necessary. So we actually confuse what we can have versus what we can't have. And then we form this opinion as to what we can't have are not necessary. Wrong. Everything, every good thing, every nicety, every small little detail, every small little beautiful thing, every small little meaningful thing in this universe is necessary. Why don't we have them? Like he very eloquently mentioned, we can't have them because we have constraints. So constraints stop us from having what we could have otherwise had. So but the problem is we articulate this a little weirdly by saying, oh, sorry for breaking into Hindi because Hindi is the most eloquent language to say this. Iski kya zarurat hai? If you are a designer, that vocab should leave your room. Everything is necessary. Every necessary thing can't be had. Both of them are true. But if you actually know everything is necessary, you will work for it. If you actually thought something was not necessary, you would never work for it. So for me, I have always been subjected to designing with constraints. I have never really had a life where constraints did not come and weigh me down with respect to what I really wanted to achieve. But my attitude to life from the time I started designing to today is that if I did not have that constraint, I would have surely done it. If I did not have that constraint, I would have surely done it. Because of that, I have learned in a rather nice way that when you have that attitude, you actually get more than what you actually get if you thought it was not necessary. If you thought that a car is never necessary, the odds are that you'll never really buy a car. But if you always thought that a car is necessary, you'd work for it. So for me, designing with constraints is the first day of my designing something, I believe everything is possible. And then circumstances like budget, time, product market fit, need of the customer at that time, your manager, your own craft. There are so many things that will come in as constraint, which will weigh you and put you at a point where you can achieve what you can. But then what is important for me is I keep telling me, these are the constraints that weighed me down. So if I removed one, I will go one step closer to where I wanted to be. If I removed two, I could close to. And your attitude as a designer to building products will be to now remove the constraints than work with constraints. My biggest problem is designers are taught to work with constraints. I want to teach designers who have come to me by saying, work harder to remove those constraints. Like, when CRED started, I was told that you cannot, we will do the joke a little later, but I was told that you cannot run so many screen transitions and animations and still keep a meaningful fintech product. They were right. But I just kept telling I have to get there. 6 release down, I got there. If I took a position by saying, this is not possible, or worse, this is not necessary, promise you I wouldn't have done it. So, for me, constraints are going to weigh you down. Budgets are going to weigh you down. Timelines are going to weigh you down. A manager with abysmally bad taste is going to weigh you down. A CEO who thinks he gets design but doesn't will weigh you down. And every other customer who actually feels he understands design but doesn't will weigh you down. Unfortunately, that's life. But what we need to do as designers is to say that there will be one day when these constraints vanish. And that day, the product I really wanted to build will be a reality. And everything we do is a journey to that reality. And because of that attitude that I have right now, I can promise you from my own life's experience, I have overcome constraints. And I can honestly and very, very high conviction, with very high conviction, I can tell you that if you don't have that attitude, you will always be that person who comes into a room and help identify constraints. If you are a designer and your core competency is very rapidly becoming identifying constraints, hate me later, you're living a very sad life. Denigrate that identifying constraints to a person who is not a designer. You all have the blessing or birth lottery or genetic advantage or chromosomal configuration, whatever the hell you want to call it, that made you a designer. Your job is to design without constraints. There's always going to be another dude who will give it to you. Don't be that design dude who comes and tells, "Arey, par ये हुआ तो क्या होगा?" अरे वो नहीं होगा ना. करते हैं डिजाइन पहले. उसके बाद प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर, एनालिस्ट, सेल्स गाय, मार्केटिंग गाय, सीईओ, somebody will come and say, "अरे नहीं होगा." मालूम था पहले से ही. So there's a huge difference in the two attitudes, right? So just take the first attitude. Don't be that. Already we are in India, and with all this traffic and with all the shit that we have to deal with, and population and pollution and smog, and I don't know what the hell, man. We already have so many constraints that we navigate. At least on Figma. Yeah. Don't have them. Somebody will come and fuck it up for you. It's okay. Most likely the customer.
Makes a ton of sense. I think that's a wonderful answer. For sure, designers should not be the one who's butchering the craft.
I mean, you can be one, man, but don't be that guy,
Right.
Like, there are guys who are generally paid to do that.
Right.
Like, how much pessimism will you have, man, as a designer? You're designers, man. I think work on the optimism a little. Not blaming anyone. The sheer number of utterly pessimistic young designers I meet is scary. They almost speak like my dad. My dad is extremely pessimistic, God bless him. But you are 21. What are you pessimistic about? It's going to be great, bros. ChatGPT has already solved half the things for you. By the time you are 30, everything will be solved. Be optimistic now. But Harish bhai, the customer may have some Redmi Note that released in 2013 with the broken screen where the brightness button is not working. Will this grey work? I would have liked a 50-year-old say that to me, not a 21-year-old. 21-year-old is like, who is this idiot with a Redmi Note? That's the attitude I want in you. Not that, like, don't confuse empathy with exasperation. You are entitled to be exasperated. Like, when I was a front-end engineer, there is always that one dude on Opera Mini.
Yeah.
Always that one dude on Opera Mini. Now, bro, you have chosen a really bad life for yourself. And I'm going to service you, yeah, okay? But then allow that 22 hours of my life for somebody who updated himself to Chrome. And sometimes I wonder the Opera Mini dude is some random poor person in rural Tiruchirappalli. I would still feel altruistic about it. It is some random cartoon in Koramangala who has Wi-Fi internet. Oh, no, but I want it to be fast. Like how fast? Can you tell between 1 second and 2 seconds? I'm sure you can't. So most of these cartoons are people who somebody just told that, oh, I have to be a particular way. So something. All I'm trying to say is like service them. It's important to feel empathized towards them, but don't become that dude.
This brings me to my next question, which you already again touched on naturally, which is having, picking your bosses and having, fortune to work with different kind of bosses. And you have a streak of, working in started with macro media. Like I'm sure
Yeah, man.
people would not have even born back
Sounds
then.
archaic now, yeah.
How many of you know macro media? Just raise a quick show of hands. Wow, we are archaic.
Yeah. Old people in the room, hi.
That's sad that you aged yourself by raising your hand.
Yeah, man, I know.
You don't have to raise your hand. All right. So, what is it about working with founders, and especially we work with Kunal and FreeCharge, where it was a whole different kind of project, and at CRED completely different point of view and this thing, and many designers, as our industry grows, will work with founders. They will be the first designers hired working with founders. So what tips can you give these designers when working with founders? I remember this one particular sentence that really impressed me about the kind of clarity you had about this. You said, my job is to make Kunal successful.
Yeah.
Right? So I would love for you to touch on that more. How do you approach that?
Yeah. So I think we all grow in our careers. So when you're in your early stage of career, you don't get to choose your boss. Like you don't, let alone choose your boss's boss. Right? Like, I mean, not possible. So like, I just don't want to come in and say something which is like impractical generally to look like, wow, that sounded so impressive. No, like it took a while for me before I could choose my boss. But look, the things that you need to understand, how does a designer make meaningful impact? We actually draw rectangles. That's what we do. And sometimes we write English, and sometimes we ask questions, and sometimes we transcribe survey questions, and sometimes we do personas, and sometimes we're actually illustrating or doing motion design. But largely we do things that don't have a life of its own. It's an idea. It's a visual representation of an idea. Your success largely comes from working with engineers who take your idea, feel for your idea, and translate that into a meaningful outcome. Like, so one thing that I have always seen, I mean, I'll come to founders in a bit, Sid, but I won't, because I see young people in this room.
Sure,
they may not be founder direct, but
Yes.
they might be just boss direct, which is why I'm
sure.
saying this. Look, I have worked in organizations where designers and engineers get transactional about their relationship, which is why the language is, give me the mocks and I'll start building it. Like, it's a bit of an architect-mason relationship. Like, to be very honest, in a situation like that, only top-down works. Like, you have to be told, do this, don't really... See, the guy who actually lays the bricks in your house may not have the vision for the house, right? He just works for a salary. He just has been given a measurement to stack up bricks and chisel them basis a drawing. That person is not passionately feeling for the home that you're building, which is why that person has a mason role. And which is why almost all masons have a supervisor. In Hindi, they call it mestri. In Malayalam also you call it mestri. And the funny thing about a mestri is that mestri also doesn't know what is being built. He only is supervising the mason's work. And the mestri now has a super mestri, and all the way up, and you have the guy who's actually building the house. Correct. Now, this is a very top-down ecosystem. And unfortunately, in software industry, we are stupid. We take stuff that should never happen and put it into our scenes of work. So designers and engineers sometimes just have this mastery of outdoor, mastery of indoor relationship. Like, for example, I will put bricks, you put the cement. Like, this is how we work. So what is most important is build a relationship with the engineers who will take your designs and translate that into working code. How do you build that relationship? Building the relationship, first of all, comes from working with people with good taste. Which is why when you're interviewing, insist on meeting your engineering partners. Many a time in design interviews, you only meet the design team. And many times the design team is like a bit of like your fraternity hostel. Oh, everybody is so cool. Oh, everybody is so like me. Everybody is so chill. Oh, they go to the same bar as me. They wear the same shoes as me. And there is a dude who is wearing a kurta and track pant on the other side. That is a guy who comes from an engineering college, like very, very different. I am one very different worldview, very different priorities and likes in life. But sometimes you do end up in situations where these engineers feel for your journey as much as you do. So meeting engineers and knowing, telling them what you stand for and understanding what they stand for is important before you take up a job. Otherwise, what happens is you'll end up being the rectangles that you created, which is why most of us actually have a portfolio document and some dribble shots. Very few designers come and tell me, look, I don't have a resume. This is the app I built. Go see. Like only few designers have that privilege. And I want a lot of designers to have that privilege. This is what I built. Go see. I mean, you can see my work. I don't have to really write English about an esoteric problem that Zomato does not have, which I solved as a case study. The second thing is, understand what your role is first and what is it that you bring in as a value. Think about you as an orchestra. You're a violin player in the orchestra. Be a very good violin player. It is okay to understand how to play flute. It is okay to understand how to play the timpani. It is okay to understand how to write the staff notation. But be a damn good violin player first. Which is, when you're starting your design career, don't broad base yourself. Oh, I also want to learn a little bit of product manager. I also want to be a bit of an analyst. Oh, every Thursday from 5 to 6, I go and sit with the customer support team to listen to customer complaints. Honestly speaking, don't waste your time. You're not helping shit. You're actually wasting that dude's time. He knows his work, which is why he's in that job. First of all, spend your time. So if you're a designer, become a bloody good designer first. Contribute to the orchestra as a great violin player first. And eventually you will become the guy who's writing script. You will become the guy who is now curating the show. Work your way up like that. I honestly feel bad when I see designers who don't want to become a great designer first. And how do you become great designer? Is by understanding design, by understanding the craft of design, understanding if you were in my team, I will argue, understanding the art of design, understanding the consumer behavior, understanding what makes a person happy and become that really good. And always go to an organization that fosters you being a good designer. So read the job description clearly. Sometimes what many companies want is a handyman, not a designer. Oh, I want you to also speak to customers, also design, also have some understanding of code, also have a great acumen of data, also have the ability to parse data, also have the ability to build poster, also have the ability to solve for poverty. No, don't join that organization. He actually wants a one-size-fits-all, and you are not going to be successful in that organization. Value companies that say, I want a designer who is good at design, who thinks in design, who will support the engineers, who will support the product managers, who will support the CEO in a journey of creating a product. So my general guidance is read the job description. Quiz the HR manager that is calling you in terms of why do you need me? And you will get your answers. And several companies, so I can say that any organization that I have worked in, I have kept my intellectual honesty to say that, hey, look, you are an entry-level designer. This is what you're going to do. And it is okay. An entry-level designer does not have to feel emotionally let down that, oh, but I don't get to go and speak to the customer. No, you don't need to. It's okay. You will speak to the customer 1-2 years later, 1-2 months later, 6 months later. Put your time, learn the craft. If you are a UX designer, become a visual designer. If you are a visual come UX designer, learn some illustrations, learn some motion design. Learn the basics of how your layout is getting translated to UI. Then you can directly tell the engineer, okay, you don't have to do this, you can do that. So just invest in your craft, invest in your subject first. So I want to just tell, become a specialist designer first. Everything will follow. The sheer number of 2-year experienced designers that come and tell me, within a year, I want to become a product manager. And then what? Then in 4 years, I want to become a founder. To do what? To shut that down. 2 साल में तो डिजाइन ही नहीं सीख पाओगे तुम. So good things in life freaking take time. Invest that time. Like everybody, I presume, is from the design space right now. I'm folding my hands. 90% of your time, please design. The 10% time you can go and listen to customer support complaints. It is like extracurricular activity. Like don't make it your activity. Which is why I meet a lot of people who can neither understand customer sentiment nor know how to actually drop a shadow on Figma, nor know how exactly is this business built, but eventually I want to be a product manager. Don't do that. Really don't do that. Just becoming a good designer is easy. You have great mentorship. Look at this place. I mean, individually, each one of you can mentor and give your experience as a design to each other. We're all there, like the old ones who went there before and got the bullets before you guys did. So all of us are here to help you with that. But just I want to see a fraternity of young designers from India who are like designer first. And not somebody who is just looking to. Don't becoming that engineering college dude who wants to give Katya. Then why are you in engineering college? Like have some passion for that subject, no? Like just study engineering, be a little committed to that. I wasn't one, but at least I'm just saying. Like, and then do this. So that's I feel emotional about this because the sheer number of young people with talent that I meet who don't want to be good designers is mind-boggling. And the worst is they actually think it is cool to not be a specialist designer. The converse is true, guys. You will be valued for your craft a lot. A lot. You will see a lot of people around you who think craft is not important. Like, and people will give you example, अरे craft करके क्या फायदा है तो GPT बना के दे देगा. You're stupid. GPT won't make you anything. Like, if you are crafty, GPT will make your craft better. If you are non-crafty, GPT will make it worse. So just invest a little bit in being a good designer. Said I'm taking a long time, but I feel I feel very emotional about it. Even if the session goes 10 minutes extra, I'm comfortable. But I really wanted to make this point. Like just spend your time, travel to a few countries. I think it was you and like Sapta who have these flags on their Twitter profiles to the countries and cultures that you have gone to see. Take some money and travel. Go meet people. Go see museums. Go attend concerts. Attend fashion shows. I do not know. Go look at automobiles. Go look at furniture shops. Go to furniture shops. You'll become a better designer. Don't get stuck in this digital distortion field that we are living in. Our actual designers who build physical products know, for them, they actually think we don't even have a real job. So it is important to go and see how design is really done in spheres outside of this 480 by 840 rectangle that we are working with. Like, that's my general advice. And then bosses will happen, bosses will happen. And always understand 99.99% वो कीटाणु वाला logic है. 99.99% people that you will meet in your life think they know design, but they don't.
Agreement.
Violent agreement. And many a time they will be your bosses. It's okay. It is important for you to know whether you know design or not. And you will eventually get to a place where you will meet people that understand and value your craft, your design, and your ideas. It will take some time in your career, sometimes 2 years, sometimes 5 years, sometimes 10 years. But what is important is to not readjust to your boss. Many designers readjust and become those bosses. A great dude who just came in as a young designer, I meet him 4 years later, he's speaking exactly like his boss. I'm like, ये आदमी था ही tasteless, तुम भी बन गया वो आदमी. Like, don't do that. Like stick to who you are, because if money could buy taste, Bangalore homes wouldn't look like what they look like. There are people who are putting granite on the wall. How can I go and tell that person it is a flooring tile? Like, some homes in Adugodi that I was shown when I was in 2003, I couldn't tell between the bathroom and the drawing room. The same fixture. The bathroom tiles actually cascade down. So, long story short, you won't get to pick your bosses, ever. Some people get the privilege. I got the privilege very late in my life. Don't become the dude that you don't want to become. Like, it is very important. Stick to your guns, hang out with the community. Thank you. Great stuff, great show, Growth School, great show, everyone, to hustle the community together. Come together as a community. Be with people that will make you a better designer. You can't fix your boss. Not in India, not in Scandinavia, not in the US, not in Mars. Your boss is going to be your boss. Either you leave the boss and find another boss, or you become a better designer yourself. So, if you have good taste, work on the taste. Make it better and hang out with people who will make that taste better. And do not allow anybody to normalize their lack of taste as the cool thing. You know what I'm trying to say, right?
Yes.
There are a lot of people who will come and literally try to tell you that your skills are not important.
Right.
You will hear a lot of people say that, hey bro, but your skills are not important. And my skills are really what matters. It comes from extreme insecurity of humans who don't have that skill. It is like, when I sing, a lot of people come and say, ये गाने वाने से क्या होगा? तो भाई तुझे नहीं आता है ना, इसलिए वो लगता है. You can't sing, which is why you feel my singing is not important. And if you are a singer and then you become that guy, you will also start saying singing is not important. That's a shame. That's a bloody shame. Don't do that. Your craft, your skills are important. Don't let an average product manager or a boss or a boss's boss to come and tell you, yaar, let's solve a problem. I am solving a problem. In a way that only I can, because you don't get what I can make. So treat me like a partner. I cover for what you lack. I don't cover for what you lack by letting go of what I have and becoming you. So be very vigilant about that. And I see that happening a lot often in this industry. Don't let that happen to you. And if it happens to you continuously, run for your life. Yeah? Cheers. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Brilliant answers. Loving this today. So, you already answered one question, but if I had a penny for every time, some founder, CEO thought they understand design, I would not need to work again in life. Like, it's insane.
Not just founders, just people in general, man. Like,
right,
founders get a bad rap because they're visible, but they are all over.
Right. Well, but that does bring me to, I just want to dig a tiny little bit deeper. You already covered majority of it, but just in case you have something more to share there.
Sure, man.
Since design is visible, right? Like, nobody has an opinion on, what kind of code is written there, because no one understands it and it's not visible. But design, everybody has an opinion on. Like, if I went on the street and showed somebody some app that they have nothing to do with, they will have an opinion on it. And that is what makes, these negotiations that go on with designers and other people, what are some tips that you could give to designers how to be more effective in those arguments, in those discussions where you can make sure taste wins out, because that's usually a challenge.
Sure. Wow. Okay, I haven't solved this. So to be very honest, it's a great one. I don't think I have gotten to where I or you or any of us should get to. So it's a process that I'm also in, and probably little ahead because I was born early. But it's a problem that exists. So see, the problem with anything that you create for others, design, art, you create. See, some bit of it you create for yourself, some bit of it you create for others. And if you're in a late stage capitalistic realm that you currently are in, you are more or less creating for others, because that's where the profit pools are. That's where the money is. So look, people are going to form views on what you created basis what they know. This is the reality of design as a faculty. Like, you win when what you thought directly translates to what the person who's consuming it is thinking. That's a moment of triumph. You won. But in a large Pareto of time, it will not be true. and you thought about something in a particular way, it was perceived slightly differently from it. And the gradation sometimes is closer home and sometimes orthogonal. Like, you would have thought it will work like this. The customer just perceived it the opposite of it. So two things that is important to understand is observe closely. Where are you wrong? Observation of human behavior is very important. And then bracketize. Before you bracketize, you can't negotiate. This question is actually very eloquent. The right word is actually negotiation, because everything in life is a negotiation,
Right.
because you can't really hit anything on the bullseye every single time. Everything has some amount of negotiation. So thank you. I think it's good articulation. So you should understand how behaviors are evolving as opposed to reaction. Because reactions are instinctive, while behaviors are formed over time. Would you agree? Sometimes we react to things because when it actually is in a realm that is unfamiliar to us, the thing that we do is called a reaction. And sometimes what happens is the reaction will then define your behavior. In certain cases, the reaction will give way to a behavior that is opposite to the reaction. I'll give you an example. Wasabi as a spice always creates a reaction. And you'll be surprised, a lot of people will then take to wasabi.
In fact, that's the reaction that makes you like wasabi.
Yeah.
Right.
The second one is beer. Anybody who has had beer in their life the first time would have reacted in a way कि इसको क्यों पीते हो? And then something happens to us. And then we speak about IPs and pale ales and fresh brews and lagers, and there's a whole chasm that we go into about beer. But so the reaction and the behavior were counterintuitive. Rotten egg. Smell it once, creates a reaction. You're never going to smell rotten egg again. Right. So in design, it is important for you to understand, can a reaction be translated into an outcome that is opposite to the initial reaction that created, is a thing that forms through time, which requires observation. It requires continuous analysis. It requires continuous iterative reading of behavior. So what is important is, if a reaction can be normalized and translated to a positive outcome through the time, then those reactions are not necessarily a bad thing. But if a reaction has created an absolute sure shot negative prognosis, then that reaction is a bad thing. So how you negotiate is by bucketizing this. So which is why we speak about trainability. We speak about teachability. We speak about inducibility. A lot of times designers are not taught what inducibility is. You know what inducibility is? Inducibility is an innate ability that humans have. Once I have induced it on you, it becomes first nature for you. For that induction, you need some hand-holding. For that induction, you need to be told about the greater good. A lot of us, when we start at the gym and are asked to do a plank, you can't. It's painful. Your first reaction is like, I don't want to do this. How are you then induced to do it? One is you're shown a promised land. You do this X number of times. This is what you will get to. Number two, I will break it down for you. You will start with 1, then you make it 5, which is why it is all about reps, right? Like, you start with 5 reps, then you go to 50 reps, then you go to 100 reps. So design and design reactions are about this inducibility. Can you stick and induce a behavior in mid to long term so that the person sees the greater good in a certain period of prognosis is what will define whether your design will be adopted or not. But many a time, what we do as designers? We react to the reaction. Oh, funnels are gone. Everything is dropping. I have 200 tweets that is shitting on my new design. Product manager comes in, revert kar de kya? Yeah, to chala nahi. So what is important is like the negotiation happens through the time that you provide, and how do you induce people to do something again and again and again, and 15 days later the same guy who reacted would actually say, यार अब तो मुश्किल नहीं लग रहा है. It's a new behavior. It's a trained behavior. It is an induced behavior, but it has become. The thing about life is like, you will only complain when it is hard for you. When it has become easy for you, you don't talk about it. Which is what is important for designers to understand. Like, it is very hard to get a customer to agree to your change or something that you create. It's very hard. We are all naturally animals of muscle memory. We don't like breaking the apple cart, as they speak. We don't like it because it creates entropy, like Kunal's favorite word. And we don't like the entropy. Like, the entropy makes it hard for us because it actually had us to stop what we were doing and focus on it. So it is important to overcome that in a person's mind by inducing through the right set of triggers that you can provide. Sounds a little meta, but it is again goes back to the same logic. Like, dog train the person. No dog wants to do a trick. Ever. Anybody has dogs here? Left to them, they are bred out of wolves. They don't want to do tricks. A wolf doesn't want to do tricks. There's a reason why wolf still doesn't do a trick. Because you didn't evolve them to do tricks, while dogs were evolved to do tricks. And I'll come to it a little later. So consumer behavior is the same. You have to induce, have the right reward cycles, pronounced and non-pronounced, and things will normalize. So the negotiation comes by observing continuously, patternizing, and landing them. And many things you'll have to land the hard way. But what you do after that will make you successful. Many a time we as designers think, oh, our end point is the day of release. Your start point is the day of release. And from there, how do you build and develop what you have created to induce the solicited behavior in your user will define the success of your design, not the day zero when your design dropped. And I say this every conversation I have. Every familiar thing, pattern, object that you have today started as an unfamiliar object, started as an unfamiliar pattern. It is our trainability and inducibility that made us who we are. So it's important for us as designers to understand that. And to Sid's point, that is how you negotiate. Negotiation should not be like, hey, see this? Samajh mein aaya? Aaya, samajh mein aaya? Aaya, aaya. If you research like that, then 20 guys will say, nahi samajh mein aaya. And then you'll go back and say, oh, sorry, research now tells me that this is not going to work. यार और 15 बार देखा हो समझ जाएगा. And एक बार समझ गया ना, he will actually buy them in kilos. If you didn't have that, you wouldn't have bought it only. So that's how gross margins work. So you need to understand, sometimes you have to keep sampling, keep doing it, keep pushing, and then your margins will arrive. Yeah. I wish this was simpler, which is why I said I'm also trying to work. Maybe in another 10 years, I'll get more eloquent about this. But that's what I know right now.
Thank you for that answer. I mean, I don't know how many of you were able to follow all along, but that had layers of depth. Like, I'm so glad this is getting recorded because that section, I'm gonna send it to a lot of people.
Yeah, and trust me, which is why I said I'm learning too. When I go back and probably decode it, it's highly likely that the 40th second I'm like, what the hell am I saying? And or I might like, oh, so beautiful, it makes no sense. So all that is possible in that last 8 odd minutes I spoke, I guess. But yeah.
I've been told I have to, so I will limit we are running out of time, so I'll limit to 2 questions that I really have a lot more for sure. But
yeah, Sid, here's the thing.
Yeah.
So if the audience are not getting flustered or longer, I'm happy to answer them to value because it makes no sense that we invest this time and then I say, look,
I will always have more questions then.
Yeah, but
we'll take
so
it
go
on
ahead.
next
I mean, generally don't cut down on things that we have to speak about today because of me. But if it is for the folks here who have other things to do on Sunday, then I'll respect that time.
Really appreciate it. Folks, going good? Everyone good? Awesome. So you started as an engineer and that too a JavaScript engineer. Now engineers will scoff at that obviously, but that's a separate story altogether. But it gives a designer an unfair advantage, you have to admit there, because I also learned coding before, and the ability to translate, like you mentioned, design is something that doesn't come easy to non-coders. But is there a way to develop that advantage in your experience? Have you ever seen that happen without learning how to code, or is that the only way to, or is that even valuable advantage?
I mean, learning to code is a good thing. Like any skill that you acquire, if you have, it's an acumen thing. Some people can instinctively learn it, some people can't. Like, for example, I mean, I wouldn't put a lot of weight on have to learn it. I've never been that guy who said designers have to learn coding. It's a good to have skill. Much like I tell front-end engineers, like, thoda bahut design seekh lo. It's good for you. So it's a good to have skill. I have never really believed that designers need to know how to code. I don't come from that world. If designers that can code just the way he said, definitely have a solid advantage when it actually comes to building front end products. But I don't think it is a necessary condition. The reverse is also not needed. Like I also know front-end programmers who are good designers themselves, who also have some sort of an advantage when they're actually building stuff. But what is important, I think, is building empathy for the other function, which is the front-end engineering function. And back-end a little lesser, but front-end very important. And building empathy comes from understanding why something is possible and why something is not possible. And honestly, I would only request designers to learn that. Like, because engineers might just come back and say, yaar, ye to possible nahi hai. Learn to the extent as to why he or she is saying that. And which will also help you identify who is a slacker versus who is a real dude. Because sometimes engineers also slack, right? They'll simply say not possible because I don't know how to do it, so I'm not going to put the effort. So just learning a little bit about how something is done will genuinely help you understand the reality of when engineers say what is possible versus what is not. Same thing I tell engineers, like, sometimes just listen to the designer as to why he or she says this is important to do, and that builds the empathy on both directions. So I only believe that building for that empathy will help you become a better designer, better engineer. So that's my reaction to that.
Awesome. So no need to definitely you don't need to know, but if you know some of the mental models.
Which is my view.
Right.
Which is my view.
Right. For example, I've realized teaching people about async and sync methods, it blows designers' mind that, that's why you have skeletal state, loading state, and these kind of states.
Correct. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
I want to change just slight trajectory. This was part of the questionnaire that I really wanted to get to with you, because I don't think anyone has asked that question. How much designers should rely on data, should use data, or what nature of data, would you say, in your opinion?
You should rely on data. You should. Designers should all rely on data. So let me start by affirmatively stating that, designers that don't believe in data will be bound to struggle and maybe become less successful than somebody who believes in data. So reliance is a dangerous word. There is rely on data for things that will help you make better decisions. I think everything should help you get better at something. See, for example, objective data can help you validate a lot of hypotheses that you have created while designing. And using data retrospectively to understand whether your hypothesis was right or not, or whether something that you created is indeed the way it is getting consumed, is very, very important. So building for good measurement, building for reading the data back to understand if your hypothesis is right or not is a mandatory condition for designers, in my opinion. Designers that don't do that will actually struggle their way through. So to that end, data is extremely important. And being data savvy is important. Maybe not savvy is important. So, but should you be reliant on data only to design? My belief is not, because data, unfortunately, has a very objective nature to it, which doesn't capture softer triggers of human life, which are very hard to instrument and measure. I think software and technology is evolving to measure emotion. We will probably get there where everything is instrumental and you can. But as of today, there are several software triggers in our life which are hard to measure, and sometimes those hard to measure is also what makes a piece of software magical. So building better intuition is important. spending a lot more time understanding human behavior is important, objectively and subjectively, and also understanding how humans react to situations in a qualitative way is important. So I have just realized that build on intuition, build your intuition, and also design on intuition in measurable ways. Like, don't create extremely immeasurable pieces of design. Then it's a bit of an anybody's game then. Like, you don't even understand what is going on. And also, I will also caveat it by saying that not knowing how to measure it should not be a reason to not design something. Let me restate that it's a twisted sentence, but let me try to simple it. You should still design it even if you don't know how to measure it. We will find a way to measure it. So I don't know how to measure it should not be the reason to not create something. And I'm saying this because there is a line of thought in software world, can't measure, should not do. I don't come from that world. I think there are several things in our life which are hard to measure, nevertheless important. So it is important to still design them and work very hard to learn how to measure them using quantitative, qualitative tools that is available, and also with our own held intelligence to go and measure them. Yeah. Hopefully this one was a little less meta, I hope.
All right. The last piece I have, in terms of what designers should learn. Actually, this question I'm gonna come back to a little later. I want to talk about, before we lose the track of it. We kept talking about taste quite a bit, and even in the first time we met, I remember you mentioning that. And I'm hoping for it's been a year since we spoke about that, so I'm hoping to see how the answer has evolved, and for the rest of the audience, probably first time. How do you develop taste in somebody? Is that even possible?
100% possible. 100% possible. I think when you are born, I think you're born as a clean slate. I think your taste is evolved by who you surround yourself with, and listen to people that have built it before. Taste is like it's an acquirable skill, right? Like, some part of it also comes from within you, like, and many a time I just believe a base level of taste, like, a reasonably good taste is developed by putting an effort. I honestly think, like, how do we know something is good? I mean, we generally tend to take advice, right? Like, we just generally tend to take a sense from people who have gone before you. And any subjective trait in your life you acquire by surrounding with people who have gone before you and have understood that. Like, acquiring taste in my head is a thing that you do by subjecting yourself to opinions, subjecting yourselves to people who have diverse thoughts, and then crystallize that, reduces, narrow it down, and get to a place. And taste is not very unitary, right? Like, there can be multiple instances of good taste. Like, which is why multiple good things exist in the world, because taste can't be just straight jacketed into one thing. Only if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, things you are supposed to have good taste is not true. Right. You can have good taste by being different from another person. But what is important is when it is good, it is good. Like, how do you know? See, for example, if I just asked in this, I mean, Paul Graham has that great essay, go and read it. And nobody can ever say it more than he has. If you have not read it, go ahead and read it. But I'll just summarize what Paul said, because I have nothing new to add. Like, if I came and told in this room, Virat Kohli is a great cricketer, nobody's going to disagree, correct? The only thing we'll disagree is whether Virat Kohli is your most favorite cricketer. Or if I asked you if Virat Kohli is the greatest cricketer ever, those things will get very subjective. But we would never say Virat Kohli is not a great cricketer. I mean, there might be 1 or 2 people who say that. Screw them. Same thing with, let's say, is A.R. Rahman a great music composer? I don't think anybody will say, no, he's not, he's stupid, usko music hi nahi aata hai. Nobody will say. But then you ask, is A.R. Rahman better or Ilaiyaraaja better? Or is A.R. Rahman better or Preetham better? Or is A.R. Rahman better, Amit Trivedi better? That will lead to a conversation. Like, because that is where the difference in taste comes in. But people who like A.R. Rahman and people who like Amit Trivedi are considered to be people with good taste. People who like A.R. Rahman and people who think, whose favorite artist is Altaf Raja, there is a problem. Like, you understand, right? So you can clearly tell what is good taste. Which is like, somebody who paints their sunshade with purple and green Like that is bad taste. There's nothing subjective about it. Like, while somebody likes art and deco versus somebody who likes wabi-sabi minimalism, both of them are legit. See, so building taste is about surrounding yourself with people that mostly get it right. And you know how they get it right. Like, we have all learned. Look at this room, right? Mostly well-dressed people. How did that happen? Did you all study fashion design? Or do you have like personal stylists? I think whoever that person has, like, meet me. I want to be as successful as you. So, but we all net know, right? We looked at the mirror and said, yeah, looks fine. Can go like this. Right? So actually taste is just very overhyped, that it is some hard thing, so difficult, so subjective that we shouldn't apply ourselves. No, it's something that you all have. We all have that. Just surround yourself with people that can show you better, and surround yourself with people that can actually show you worse also. And you will develop it. And I think I have always said this. It's a funny line. What's good is good. What's not is not. What's beautiful is beautiful. What's not is not. What is clean is clean. What is ugly is ugly. Like, when you actually go to a train station, you don't require objective analysis to say this place stinks. Or when you actually go to like a nice museum and a large piece of art on display, you don't say, मैं survey चलाता हूँ अभी. ये अच्छा है कि नहीं? It is nice. That is why it's there in a museum. Is this the best piece of art to ever come in that style of art? वो nuanced conversation हो गया. करते बाद में. But generating good taste is a thing we are all very capable of. And if you surround ourselves with people who don't put an effort to generating good taste, you will acquire their taste, and then it will become pretty terrible. So I will summarize by saying, run from people that say beauty is subjective. Run. Matlab, that guy will ruin you. That person is going to screw you over. Beauty is not subjective at all. Extent of beauty is. More beautiful, most beautiful, less beautiful is all subjective. Beautiful, not beautiful is not subjective. It's very controversial when I say that, because it is very surface level and very shallow. But hell, you don't open the bonnet of a car before you buy it, yeah. It's like how, I don't want to make this example. You swipe right or left basis a picture, yeah. Because the supply-demand problem for men versus women in India on dating is so bad, women are forced to read bios. But if there was better balance with respect to what is being presented there, I think it is like, and it is not a new phenomenon. 1970s maybe, before my mom and dad got married, मेरे पापा को मेरी मम्मी का photo भेजा गया था. Degree certificate नहीं. And nothing wrong about it. Like, I mean, it's okay. We have a start point, and from there, things just bifurcate. And every time I say this, at least 10 people come up in the arms as to why it is a problematic position. It's okay. I mean, as in, there are several problematic positions we take in life. I have mine. So, and I generally believe that good taste is absolute. Extent of good taste is not absolute. I think you can easily tell, bande mein taste hai. It's very easy. You will never be able to say, like, no, I don't agree. You will not say. You will disagree by saying, na, ye best nahi hai. Isse better dikhata hu. So that is my answer to that. So surround yourself with the right people. Run from these objectivity seekers. Even the most objective dude will actually go through the color palette before he paints his house. It's a different matter ki taste hi nahi hai, purple laga dega diwar pe. But he will still look at the color palette. Asian paints ki dukaan jayega 100%. Correct? Nobody will say kuch bhi laga do. Correct? Even the worst of dude won't say that. So that's the thing.
If any, I mean, that makes a ton of sense to me because I personally love this quote that talks about the power of aesthetics and, emotions and what we're talking about, that a moth and a butterfly are essentially similar insects.
Yeah.
Right, but one is butchered and another is revered as
Correct.
a symbol of freedom and beauty and
Yep.
joy and God
Yep.
knows what. And the only difference is aesthetic.
Yep.
For nature, they're both insects. They're coming
Yep.
from very similar families.
Yeah, because that's not how it's perceived. Very, very, very well said, man. Very well said.
And morality is dictated by aesthetics, so let alone anything else. There it goes. The last question I will keep is how much of business, rokada, dhanda, paisa, should designer understand and should be if it comes natural to them, that's a separate thing. But to those of us who are not inclined towards because we came in for the art, for the craft, is it important to understand? Is there an advantage? And if so, how do you get in?
100%. How much should you understand? As much as you can. If you are at 10, become 20. If you're 20, please become 30. If you're 30, please become 100. If you're 100, become a Gujarati. That's my advice. Nothing wins like money. Nothing wins like winning. So yeah, understanding the business, understanding money, understanding the need to make money, understanding the need to be wealthy, understanding the need to continuously generate wealth is most important for anyone, let alone just I wouldn't say it is any specific for designers. I think just don't be lazy about it. Read about it, learn about it. There are several things in life that won't come naturally to us, which we still do. So this is one of them. A lot of us don't like driving, but we drive anyway. So money is a bit like that. It doesn't come naturally to you. And take help. Sometimes you will not become the most successful money person in your life, but then surround yourself with people that understand money better. But Sid, I'll only say that don't have the attitude that it is not important for me. Everything else will fall in place. Sometimes we won't have the acumen, right? It's hard. Just like design we spoke about, sometimes we don't understand the nuances of money, and it's okay. But what is important is to acknowledge the importance of it so that you actually surround yourself with people that will help you go there. I mean, and don't get into the artist trap like a lot of us get to by saying look, I don't really.
Right, not in it for the money.
Yeah, I'm not in this. You should be always in for the money, always. Right now is the time to be in it for the money. So optimize, prioritize, making money. I think money gives you peace of mind. Anybody who actually said money can't buy you happiness has been generally poor. A person who has money would never say that. It's nice to cry in a Ferrari. So yeah, focus on making money and learn about it. Learn from people that know it better than you. Surround yourself with people that know it better than you. And never put your craft, your art, your work for free. Because once you give it for free, people just assume that it should be available for free always. And your art, I am presuming there are artists in the room. It is not a gift that God gave you. Much like a carpenter or a plumber or an electrician or a software engineer, it is something that you have put in your life and effort to learn, practice, hone, and get better at. It comes with a price tag. Never put your art or work out there for free. Never allow anybody to shortchange your basis. And never let anybody shame you for asking money for something that you create because apparently you got it as a gift. No, you didn't. Every craft in this world is a chromosomal alignment. So there's nothing very special about art. Just the way somebody's good at math, we are good at art. Somebody's good at math, we are good at. When a person who's good at math can put up a price for the work that he's doing, just the way a CA is good at math, he won't do his work for free. Similarly, we have a different skill. We are designers. We will not put our work for free also. Don't let anybody extract free work from you. Don't solve problems for companies that are trying to hire you because they want free work. Always say that my assignment beyond a point will come at a cost. You will lose some opportunities, but it's okay. Never let your work go for free.
Awesome. With that, I think we'll conclude this line of questioning, and we're going to switch some this thing. I'm sure you folks have questions as well, and Anudeep has a ton of questions as well. So we're going to start with Anudeep and your questions.
One thing I really wanted to talk about is, all of us are misunderstood. at every point of time, right? And yeah, it's very easy to say, hey, you know what, don't care about being misunderstood and stuff like that, right? But as you always say, we are emotional beings, right? For me and for a lot of young designers as well, a lot of emotions come into this play of constantly trying to say that, hey, you know what, I don't want to be misunderstood, right? I really want your perspective on that, right? Because it kind of, so what I deal with, you know, being in the program as a mentor is that constant need for, you know, as you said, we always need that validation, right? But if it goes to that level that we are so insecure that, hey, I'm always being misunderstood, right? And personally for me as well, right? I feel like, hey, you know what, my voice is misunderstood, the way I speak or the way the things I do or things are misunderstood. And I really need that urge to say to everyone that please listen to me, right? So I really want your perspective on it, on being misunderstood.
I think we are all we're fine being insecure. That's what I've understood. Like, generally we tend to tell people don't be so insecure. I have told that to people, and I am told that by people.
Correct.
So and so, look, I think I have come to understand that we are all to some degree insecure, and it is by design. I think the insecurity also drives us to do better things, and I think every day we spend our time to overcome the insecurity that we have. And I don't think we should shame people for feeling insecure about things, because you're always meeting people who are better than you. You're always meeting people with diverse views compared to you, and basis how they react to your opinions, you sometimes feel, oh, am I like really the idiot in the room? And am I so dumb that I couldn't even contribute to this conversation? Or am I so stupid that nobody even agreed to what I had to say? Or am I so stupid that my opinions were just shown the door? So I think it is something that we all will go through. And my own experience, Anudeep, has been that as long as we are making an effort to double down on what we feel is right empirically, right? Like, we all have opinions. We all feel passionately about things. And sometimes what we don't do is we don't put an effort to actually validate that in objective ways. Like, when you're, say, I have seen that, like, I had a design review where I was told my design is terrible. Like, that's an outcome of that review. A lot of times we just take that outcome and take it a lot to heart. And we tend to now either work very hard to prove how that opinion was wrong. And we get defensive. And being defensive is not a bad thing. We're all defensive. I am very, very defensive. Several times when I am questioned on the very principles that define me. It's not a bad thing. But I only would say that if you work harder to gather evidence, subjective and objective evidence with respect to why what you feel is a legitimate opinion. Like, how would you do that? That you would know only if you spent your time understanding the other person's perspective. Like, when somebody said that your work is terrible, how often do we go and ask the next question? Why do you think it is terrible?
Correct.
Or why did you say that? And many a time we are just too emotional about it that you immediately put that person at a nemesis position. Or you said this, and then a ton of your effort then goes into proving the other person wrong, right? And that doesn't objectively give you the answer to why that person felt that way or why you felt a particular way. So the only thing I would imagine us doing better to counter that is by getting deeper understanding of why somebody said what they said, and how well can you connect to that opinion after more evidence of why they said what they said is provided to you. And it's possible that even after that entire conversation, you disagree with that person. You got all the evidence out also, you still say, hey, I still disagree with you. But it made you stronger in your resolve as to why you were right. Because you got some data points. You got some opinion back from that person. And honestly speaking, we also exercise our insecurity in rather stupid ways. When you see something that we don't understand, we make judgments. See, every young person in this room would say that you have been judged by somebody at least once. For the way you dress, for the way you speak, for the design choices you made, or the life choices that you made. We have all gotten judged. We are perpetually being judged by by people. But how often do we spend an effort to understand why a particular thing is being said or done towards you? And that genuinely helps you understand this is why the said person said it, or this is why I did what I did. So many a time when I wouldn't take any specific example, me and my team in this company and previous company, I have been subjected to ridicule by the very design fraternity that I belong as part of. Like, the ridicule that people that are designing, they are like you and I.
Correct.
Like, they just work in a different organization. They have different problems and different environment. And if you actually see the general ridicule in design community to our own people, it's quite mind-boggling. We shouldn't be doing that, right?
Correct.
Like, the better thing to do is you can disagree. I'm not trying to say like it should be a you scratch my back, I scratch your back fraternity. I'm not trying to suggest that. All I'm trying to say is like ask as to why did they do what they did. Why, and that will help the insecurity go away from both sides. Like, my insecurity is gone because now I understand you better. Your insecurity is gone because, oh, that is why you did that. Now I get it. And in such a circumstance, maybe I would have also done something very similar. So I think that is what we should do. And that's what we are lacking. I think we are too impatient
Yes.
to mirror the judgment. Like, it looks like Anudeep judged me. No, I'm going to immediately use all my time and effort and energies to find those 5 things about him that I can give back.
Yeah.
We are even right now. Like, he's, so this is what happens. Somebody just said something bad about a design I put out. You know what my natural reaction is? Immediately go to that dude's dribble profile. अच्छा, ये इसका काम है.
Yeah, makes sense.
Instead, take the time to say, चल उसका काम कुछ भी हो, ये बोला मेरे डिजाइन के बारे में. Let me at least get that 5 to 6 things sorted with respect to why did he say or why did she say what she said to me, will make you a more secure person. But 9 out of 10 times, we are always looking to get back at the person.
Yeah.
Because I see this often. Somebody just shat on my design on Twitter. The first step is to say, कौन है ये? Just go and look, अच्छा इसका 20 फॉलोअर है, मेरा 100 है, इसका कोई ड्रिबल शॉट नहीं है, मेरा 25 है. And then you feel good. अच्छा, कि qualified नहीं है मेरे बारे में बोलने के लिए, so I feel good. What did you lose? Maybe the guy is not even as good as you, but what he said is right. Like, your design sucks. So maybe that is the one thing we can all do differently, and it's very hard for designers and creative people because our egos trump everything, and that ego is what makes us creative people also. So it's okay, have your ego, it's fine. Like, don't become Buddha for this. But then sometimes evaluating the opinion on the merit of the opinion and not on the merit of the opinion giver will probably help you overcome your insecurities a little better, is what I've learned. It is very, very hard, okay? By the way, I do this every single time. Somebody just said something nasty to me because I put out songs. I put out songs on my Instagram. Some random dude will come and say, like, the other dude is better. I'm like, pehle tu kaun hai? And God forbid he has some songs on his Instagram, he's done. I'll go to any extent to judge him just to feel good that I'm better than him. The reality is Gana bakwas tha. I should have just sung better. Problem would go away by itself. That's what I would say.
Very beautifully put. What we talk about in general is, and you also actually told about this in a different way, reaction versus behavior, right? And a lot of times you said, like, what, probably after this podcast, I'll go back and say, hey, did that last 40 seconds make sense? And like, that
This podcast, I'm sure it's going to happen.
Right. And the metric which I have kept for myself is that, how much time did that person invest in making a judgment?
Yep.
Right. And I deleted Twitter for that same reason. But I think I'm growing up to that's saying that, hey, what? If the person has invested a time, then I should really care about it. If it is not, I can still feel emotional, but just probably with the same time.
Acknowledge, don't react.
That's it.
You don't have to action on everything that's been told to you.
Absolutely. So the next thing, which is a very, a lot of times we had this in the community, and we especially wanted to hear this from you, is people think, misunderstand what innovation is. And I feel, so I talk about design principles, right? not the way you refer to a cohort speaking about it, but I feel people largely misunderstood design principles. Poor Jacob Nielsen is always quoted for being boring, though it's not what. So I really want you to talk about innovating. And I remember from a previous podcast, you said like, you know what, just because I'm doing something new and innovating doesn't mean that I'm not doing the basics, right? I really want your perspective on what do you think innovation is? And I often quote this example, right? Cars always had 4 wheels and cars will have 4 wheels, 50 years around 4 wheels, right? And I don't think that, you can't say that every car is not innovating. There is innovation. You're just misunderstanding and misrepresenting that innovation, standards, following standards and following principles means that they're restricting us to do only these things. I really want your perspective on this.
Look, I think I said a bit of this in my Everything is Necessary dialogue, so I won't go back to that. But look, innovation in my head is often misunderstood, at least. I mean, I don't think... See, innovation is a big responsibility.
Correct.
Innovation is very tectonic, right? Like, something shifts. Like, you innovate. And sometimes innovation can be a mild tremor.
Yeah.
Like, it's just barely felt, but it has an impact on you. Sometimes it's very profoundly felt. Like, for example, a QWERTY keyboard to a touchscreen is a massively pronounced innovation. But a simple thing like a doorknob that turns both ways is not that profoundly felt, but it is nevertheless very, very important, right? Like, So for me, having an attitude to look beyond what is currently possible is an attitude that is good to have. I think that kind of gives you the drive to go and see what else is possible.
Correct.
The problem with rules and principles and sometimes is that it gets very pedagogical. Like, it's almost like, I will only do what I read. Becomes a little problematic. I see that in design a little too much because I read this, I have been told this, now I'm going to follow. It becomes a little bit like you follow something as opposed to you openly ask questions in terms of what is it that you want to do. So I just think having an attitude to see beyond what is currently available and build towards that, it may or may not result in innovation. I think some of this might not even be things that will meaningfully translate to anything, but having that attitude is important. That's what I would say. Have I created, I just asked this to myself, have I innovated or created anything innovative? My answer to myself is no, but have I made a fair attempt?
Why would that be a no?
See, I have not gotten a chance to innately create something which has got a step function improvement in a person's life. Like, I'm being very honest.
Okay.
I have created incrementality, which I'm very proud of. I think incremental innovations are important. I'm not trying to say but a real innovation comes when, for example, filament to LED is step function.
Celebrated innovation.
Yeah. So basically, that is the goal I have for myself.
Got it.
Which is why I don't consider myself very successful being an innovative person.
But I think that trickles down to like what you're saying, the desire to not be that dude who starts talking about constraints to start with, right? Yeah. Will actually trickle down to you. Anyway, constraints will come your way, and anyway you'll start bringing that innovation. So that's
correct. So that's my view. That's my view.
The last question, I'm forcing you to keep it short, but last question is, young designers, whenever they try to get into the field, mostly get into this thing that I will find out what is the absolute truth of designing. There probably should be only one way in which design or design processes or all these things should work. And I think my value lies in finding that one truth. And if I do that, I'll get paid well, right? And if I don't do that, I'm not doing well, and I need to get someone who will exactly tell me what is the right thing to do, right? And where we have conversations about, so what we do as a community is, we turn everything into a debate. It's like, hey, you know what? Stop thinking about finding that one right answer. Don't come to me, Anudeep, and say, hey, please tell me what is the exact use of this Hicks law, as you said, right? Instead, you debate, build your own opinions, right? This is what we generally think about. So, in your experience, in your career, dealing with designers, being a designer and all that stuff, right? What do you say about this? What do you feel about this?
Yes, believing in one simple absolute truth is a doing of our own. Yeah, I think that's what I believe. I think, look, whenever you want to democratize a subject, the first thing you do is patternize it. That's what I believe happened to design education. The last decade or so, and it has got its positives and negatives. By democratizing and patronizing design, design education became far more accessible to people to get into. Right? And it's a entirely different day, different conversation, Anudeep, whether we should even debate that. I won't go to the depth of that. I have positions on that. I think when you do that, a lot of people who can't operate outside of those patterns will get into that faculty. See, so for every subject that you said, this happened to engineering education.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I'll tell you.
Absolutely.
See, what happened is a lot of us, I don't know how many people are engineers in this room. See, a lot of us, and we are in design as of now, right? And we'll make a joke about that at the end of the session. But a lot of us got into engineering colleges not because of incredible engineering acumen. You touch your hearts, you would actually say it is true. That is because engineering education across the world got democratized by helping you get into engineering via what is called as an entrance exam, which is again a patternized solution, right? And we all went for entrance exam coaching, not really engineering studies coaching. We were taught how to clear an entrance examination. Why am I saying this? It's important for me to quote. And that's how we got into engineering college, soon to understand that we are not really cut out for this, because we are probably not the best fit for engineering. And because many of us were talented, we found alternate ways to become something else that we all became. Like I became a designer. Many of us in this room became designers. Some of them are selling soap. Some of them became investment bankers. Some of them became whatever that is. Now with design education, here is what has happened. And the same patternization happened in the way design is taught. And which resulted in people who are actually not the best fit for design. I meet designers who, in my opinion, in all honesty, shouldn't be in design. But they are nevertheless in design. And then what happens is, because their own limitation with respect to who they are, they can only do a few things.
Got it.
Now, when the number of those people increase in the system, they will form a consortium which says only this much is required. And then that becomes the pattern. And then the most dangerous thing happens. There are people who should have been in design, who can actually do more. They become a minority. Where these guys actually tell your skills are not required. The classic example is visual design is not required. It is mostly said by guys who can't visual design. It is almost entirely said by people who can't visual design. Unfortunately, digital industry is filled with those people. Because they were taken into colleges where they were taught that writing personas, doing user research, calling questions, many of these are not actually core design faculties. Like core design faculties, in my opinion, is actually ability to sketch, ability to do 3D projections, ability to understand color theory, fonts, typography, kerning, ability to illustrate, ability to actually do character animations. These are all design faculties. Many people who are taken to design schools can't do this because they are not tested for that only. They are instead actually taken through an entrance examination, which makes it very easy for you to get and they will give you funny examples like HCI. I don't even know what HCI is. Is computer even a thing to interact with? You interact with other humans. Humans don't interact with computers. Humans actually interact with other humans. Anyway, I get very emo about this thing, so I will not go there. So my short answer is this: patternization comes from a lot of people who are in spectrums where ideally they shouldn't have been there. And when I say this, I don't intend. See, for example, I can't visual design. Now, the worst I can do for design is to walk around telling it is not required. I can't save my life doing illustrations. Like, screws, I can't even draw India map. Let go of illustrations. No, what is terrible? I go around and creating a coterie of people who will go and saying illustrations are not required. I can't motion design. Then what do? I find my own bros and say motion design to यार इतना important नहीं है, UX करते हैं. The reality what you're saying is like मुझे वो आता नहीं है, तो वो उतना important नहीं है.
Yeah.
This is what is really happening, and that is what I keep questioning. It is okay that you can't do something. The problem is everybody can't be everything. But it is important to acknowledge that what you do not know is important, which will help you bring the right people to do that work, which will build a better design culture. Like, should every designer know visual design? No, not required. But should every designer who can't visual design stand up and say, I don't know this, but it is very important, so I got a guy who can do it? Should every visual designer say only building graphic design is important, all this flow design is stupid? No. Every visual designer should stand up and say that this is not something that I understand, and that person understands this, so I'm going to work in partnership with them. So once you do this whole patternization will break, because different people with different attitudes will come together and build a great team. But instead, what are we doing? We are bringing people that are like us, and then we are artificially saying all the other skills that the other people have are not important. Since you asked this is exactly what ran visual design salaries to the ground in India. Like, UX designer, salary X, graphic designer, salary Y. Half the UX designers can't do anything without the graphic designer. And half the graphic designers will be just drawing rectangles and drop shadows if there was no UX designer who actually did. Where is the synergy? Where is the respect for each other's craft? And I squarely blame design schools for this.
Makes sense.
Design schools themselves teach these people and say that visual design is an afterthought. Ho sake to kar lena. I have met so many who come from design schools who actually say that visual design nahi aata. Kya aata hai? Persona likhna aata hai. And I'll tell them that's like saying I can air guitar. Can you actually play a guitar? Or like I can speak about music. Can you actually sing? So it's important, right? So this is my answer, and everybody who has at least seen me speak in public, this is a position that I have held on to for the last decade or so. I am unpopular for that, and I don't have friends in the industry because of that. I do not enjoy a lot of support from design fraternity for that. It doesn't matter, and people just think that I just hold on to my bias towards visual designers and don't value other sides of design. It is just like this: you stand by the most oppressed. That's what I'm doing. And I'm not a visual designer. I'm actually a JavaScript programmer. Can't even, I mean, look, I don't know what these guys are talking about. I don't even know I know multiply blend modes because I write code, not because I know how to use that in Photoshop. My request to designers here in this room with and without design education is the following. You can't be and won't be everything in design. You don't have to be.
Yeah.
But if you are actually building your career by dissing another specialization in design, you're doing it all wrong. Anybody that comes with a sense of false pride that I can't really do visuals. It's funny, I have seen so many resumes which actually speak about it as though it's a skill you acquired, that I can't do this.
Yeah.
And it almost always reeks of a privilege by saying I do the more important parts of design.
Yeah.
Actually, you are doing something that a product manager should be doing. God bless when the industry wakes up to that. You don't have a job. Basically, using balsamic is what a product manager should do, not you. Napkin is what you use to wipe your hands, not to draw. There are software tools for that. Like a napkin prototype. I make napkin prototypes. What sort of poverty have you subjected yourself to? You don't have a computer. And don't draw anywhere. No, all this fancy shit that has been fed to you guys, don't do that. If you can, draw the final mock. That's what you should aspire for. People started wireframing only because drawing the final mock takes time.
Yeah.
If you go to UI 8 now, you can download a goddamn UI bundle and you can make the final mock on the first day. So please don't come with this balsamic prototypes. I see designers getting worried. Oh, my resume did not have enough wireframes. I don't want wireframes. I don't want that picture, that portrait of post-it notes. I don't want that. Some random pictures of paper drawings which neither you understand nor I understand on your resume. And eventually I have 2 screens of the finished product. Actually, I wanted some 20 screens of the finished product and probably like 1 paragraph about your process. Like it's almost like hiring a chef who speaks about how he's going to cook and eventually there is only 1 glass of water and a soup. That's what your resume looks like. He spoke about a 4-course meal, but oh, in reality, I only have this soup for you. But since I spoke about it, you should believe that I'm a good chef. Screw you. No. Get me that 4-course meal. I don't know what your kitchen looks like. I don't know whether you use your right hand or a left hand. I don't know whether you buy your masala or grind it. See, all your design process is meaningless. I mean, it's important to have one, but that is meaningful only if you actually have an outcome. If you're a chef, you need to know how to cook. When you know how to cook, I'll be excited to know your process. I taste that small piece of tender morsel of paneer, put it in my mouth. I'm like, shit, how did you make it? Don't please keep telling me I am going to make butter paneer. I don't care. Can you make it? If you can make it, it should be on the plate. Once it's on the plate, I take it, I put it in my mouth and taste it. It tastes fantastic. Tell me your process. Because I need to know whether you didn't buy it off the shop. So your process is important. So don't think the process is not important. I swiggied it and just came and said it's mine. I can figure it out, which is why knowing the process and the way you think is important. But don't make it about the way you think. Because I don't even know if you can actually cook. Half the design resume is my problem is I don't know if you can design. I know you can talk about it. Because there is no outcome of your design that is available. And this is also a position I've held on for more than a decade right now. If you don't have what you have created that I can see like how the customer would see it, I won't hire you. And I have very limited control on who I can hire because I am a small-time dude with a 40-member team. I'm not like somebody who controls the entire design spectrum in this country or anything. I'm just a small guy. But within my little control, I really want to hire only people who can show what they have created. And not somebody who speaks about what they can create. They're very different things. So because I got the mic and these guys were kind enough to give me a seat, I'm saying this to you guys. Please show me what you can create. Or please show what you can create. And once you have created something great, I promise you, every single individual there would want to know how you did it.
Correct.
Every single one of them will ask you, but how did you do this? This is so magical. Your outcome is so fantastic. What process did you follow? This whole implementation is so magical. How did you come up with this? But all your portfolios read the opposite.
Correct.
How I did this, how I did, and eventually I have 2 mocks. 1 grid and 1 list. That also, it looks like everybody's mock looks like everybody else's mock. Something that won't even pass the logo swap test. Don't do that. And if you did all that, this whole patternization will go away by itself.
Correct.
And collaborate. Sometimes I actually told people, if you're not a visual designer, in your portfolio, put me some visual designers and credit the guy who did it.
Yeah.
Say that this part of it, my dear friend Vaishnav did for me. And here is his email, here is his phone number. Call him. He will tell you how we collaborated and worked on it. I might more likely hire you than you saying, I don't know visual design, so I just put the wireframes and left. Find a guy to help you because that's how you will work in your job also, no?
Yeah.
You can't do everything. But still show something like how it would be. And Anudeep, I promise you, this is not hard. And I'm not trying to propose that everybody becomes an illustrator, everybody becomes a visual designer. To start with, I have this job. I've been kept in this job for a while right now. I can't do any of what I'm saying. All I'm requesting is have the attitude to bring people together to create something. Instead of saying, this I can't. And even worse, saying, this I can't because what I do is more important, what I can't is not important. And trust me, I see this in a lot of young designers. I see it in Twitter conversations. You know the biggest credit I have gotten ever, the biggest praise I have gotten ever on X is,
Okay.
I was told that I am a visual design lead masquerading as a product person. That is the biggest medal I have ever gotten because I can actually design. Because that's what you would see. So what you're trying to say is like, you're actually a guy who built a car and not a guy who draws blueprints of cars. I'd rather be the guy who is welding the parts than the guy who is drawing the blueprints. So yeah, that's
Beautifully.
this is my genuine advice. I know people don't like advice, but it's my genuine advice. Please partner. Please collaborate. Find people unlike you. Don't find your small little cohort of like-minded people who are spending 60 minutes of their life dissing.
Other things.
And last one, can I just say this?
Absolutely, please.
Spend more time on your app than reviewing other people's apps. The guy over there is also like you. Like, he has the same aspirations in life. He probably eats the same food as you, wears similar clothes like you, takes the same goddamn Uber, goes to another office. He's probably at the Bob's bar like you while you're putting this tweet. And he or she is your future colleague. Spend more time improving what you're doing. Other people will take care of their stuff. Like, you become a critic once you're worthless as a designer. Like, in music, we say that, like, when you have lost all your ability to sing, you become a reality show judge. Because nobody cares about you. So don't become that at 21. Those guys will figure their apps. Like, don't go to X and say, which moron did this? Somebody like you.
And you'll get the opportunity to be one tomorrow.
And he's going to come after you after you put out your mark. Yeah. Don't do this. It's unhelpful.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Awesome. So that was really a very good, heartfelt conversation, Harish. And we're so happy. And one thing I can promise you, as a community, it's not just about we are hearing this and throwing it away. We'll take this forward.
No, take what you can. Yeah. Honestly,
and something which we can, because we keep having these conversations, and I see a lot of my students smiling, and because I know we will take things out and put things into practice and start.
Yeah, and Anudeep, I'll just say this much: like, you get all kinds of views from people, and I was saying this too because we spoke. Three of us were talking before we walked in.
Correct.
Opinions are valid because of a vantage that you're sitting in. Because I sit at a particular seat and I see something and I have a lived experience. That's from where my opinions are formed. Opinions are valuable, but you also need to corroborate that to the seat that you're sitting in and the position that you're in and the life that you're leading. And some opinions are just opinions. You don't have to take them. Like, one thing that I promise you, like all the people who come and speak about stuff, it's important to listen to all of them, absorb it. But what is important to understand that some of them are not for you. They would never be for you. So I spoke for about 1.5 hours here. There might be a bazillion things that are not for you ever. But it's important that you heard me out. It's important you will know that perspective exists. And it's important for you to actually say that while I know this perspective exists, it is not for me. And when I was young like you guys, nobody told me that. I was pressurized to take everybody's advice. I was told that everybody who has some agency to come and speak to you is important and his or her opinion needs to be taken. I did that mistake in my life and career. A lot I suffered out of that. Whatever I said to you today, don't be bound by it. Don't be enslaved by it. It is just an opinion. It is a lived experience of another individual. And you may find resonating points in your careers of what I said. Take them and apply them only there. And the remaining of them, it is just something that you invested time in this afternoon, and do not be mentally enslaved to anybody's view on design. I think it's very important because each one of us are right and wrong in what we said, depending upon where you are sitting and looking at this. And I really because I was shamed for not taking people's views, and when I took them, it actually worked against me than for me. So please do understand that. Whatever I told you will be valuable in parts, rhetorical in parts, and meaningless in parts. This will be every conversation that you will ever meet in. And I'm very comfortable being that person. And in all honesty, I'll tell you, I won't be able to impart 100% meaningfulness to things that I tell you. So take only what you have to. And be confident to let go of the remaining. Nothing will happen. I just wanted to say that.
So heartfelt of you and so truthful. Okay, so I think I am sure a lot of you want to ask something, but Harish, if you have some time for the questions.
Of course, man, I have the time. That's what I meant.
Where do you see that next 5 years or somewhere down the line, right? Product designers are kind of merging with product managers' roles. So, like, what's your take on it? Like, and where do you see designers going in that direction?
Sure, man. I think product designers and product managers have always been analogous functions. Designers becoming PMs is easy. The converse is a little hard because of the craft bit that is involved in it. Next 5 years, I really don't know, man. In the near future, I can tell you, because next 5 years, I don't know the kind of rate at which we are growing in terms of tech. I don't want to be called stupid 5 years down by some young kid who is watching my interview. So I really don't know. I don't want to say anything dumb. I just can only speak about the next 6 to 18 months. I guess designers will be equipped with better tools and better decision making tools that is available to create better value out of what we create. I think that is what generative AI is doing. That's what even assistive AI is helping you with. And also the tools that we are using and the methodologies that we are using to design solutions will also evolve basis the tools that is available around us. And product management and design will more and more shrink and becoming a product function. I think it will start becoming design and product, and both of them becoming a function that is working with each other. More and more is what I would see that is happening in close time, because measurement mechanisms are getting better. Better insights are coming basis data that is available. So PMs are becoming more effective in giving better direction. And of course, with the tools available to us, we are becoming better as designers. And more functions like motion, illustrative design, visual storytelling, combination of VFX. I'm genuinely thinking that VFX will have a big role to play with wearables coming in the way things are building, and it's just a feeling that I have. So all those things will come together. I think we are here for a more vibrant environment. At least the when you guys are my age, I think you would have done probably 20x more than what I could do in my entire career, for the simple reason that the explosion that you have around that. So I think good time to be a designer, bro. That's what I would say. Just focus on the nice bits and ignore the stupid bits.
People think some people say that UX design is the whole thing, and some people say that it's a two different thing. But what do actually industry expects from a UX designer?
Oh, Jesus. Okay. Thank you. So many things I want to say. First of all, hey, where do I start? I will try my best to, in spirit of brevity, I'll try to say this. No customer ever got excited by how you did something. Ever. Yet to meet a customer who got excited by how you created something. So this whole argument of saying, I got excited by your process does not exist. And secondly, no customer ever liked something because it looked good. No customer ever liked it because it worked well. It's a combination of all of these.
Yep.
And it is just the designer's hallucination, where we find comfort in saying, oh, customer liked it only because how it worked, or customer liked it only because how it looked, which is where all these idiots in the industry say, there is UX but no UI, there is UI but not UX. So where do these people come from? I mean, what sort of, it takes a very special moron to say that. There is UI but there's no UX. There is no breathing but there is alive.
Yeah.
Like idiots. Anyway, basically, looking good is as important as working good. Working good is as important as looking good. So if you want to insist that you are some kind of a UX designer, then you have to make it look good and work good. I can make it look good so me UI, I can make it work good so me UX is stupid. I don't know where this came from. I don't know where this industry got this notion, and it has gotten so normalized right now that whatever you said, people say that. Which is why I like the fact that you asked this question. Thank you so much.
And the polarization is like...
I mean, it's dumb at so many levels, I don't even know where to start. So my point is, for a good product, it will look good, it will work good, it will do what it is promising to do, and it gives you delight. All these 4 things that I mentioned is when a software actually sticks. That's when people come back to you. Just because, you have no other choice, you use something does not mean it works really well. A lot of UX people, I'm one of them, but I'm just saying, only UX, no UI type people actually think that, Oh, it worked, so the customer loves me. Customer doesn't love you. He didn't have a choice. You fucked him over so bad that he's dealing with you. The day somebody does anything marginally better, he'll leave. So the whole argument of saying like, oh, get it to work first. I mean, it's almost, see, it is like just because a poor person is sitting in a two-seat mein 6 log baithte hain India mein, that doesn't mean it is comfortable. But I still have to go from place 1 to place 2, and what choice do you give me is what is defining why people actually put up with you. So a lot of times we just believe just because people or customer puts up with something, they like it is a stupid notion. So as much as possible, I love this breathing, living analogy a lot. I think I've said this in the past also. Like, to be able to live, you need to breathe. But breathing is not enough. You can be in coma and still be breathing.
Yeah.
This is what I want
But
to tell
is
the
that like-
idiots who say make it work first. The body is working, blood
I know,
pressure perfect,
MVP is your
breathing
favorite
perfect.
word.
MVP is the most stupid thing you can ever say. What is minimum viable product is like a man in vegetative state. It's minimum viable. It has a body, it is breathing, it has got blood pressure, it has got the right glucose levels, but can't smile, can't sit, can't stand, can't dance. Okay, the only excuse we have is it is not dead. 90% of products are built like that, which is why we have this such low inspiration tripe that is being pushed out on the industry primarily because of the attitude. Zinda hai, bahut badhiya. For me, living is the ability to sing, the ability to dance, the ability to jump, ability to get angry, ability to get sad, ability to go on dates, ability to watch movies, laugh, cry, the whole thing. So once you do that, that's when you have a real product. So if you are a curriculum designer, ma'am, that's what you told me. Tell these guys to create something for the living, walking, talking beings that you and I are. We like things that look good also. We like things that work good. Okay, we like meaningless things. I just want to, I don't know how I can explain this. Please invest in the frivolous. We are not that boring, yeah. Like every time, we do frivolous things because it is fun. We are actually watching cat videos on Instagram. My cat, I have 7 cats. I still make them play with that stick every day. It's frivolous. It just gives me happiness, So invest in the frivolous, invest in happiness, invest in the feelings of the people that you use it. All the UX, UI and all will come together. So teach people to build for humans. That is my answer. Usme wireframing bhi aata hai, UX bhi aata hai, user research bhi aata hai, UI design bhi aata hai, illustration bhi aata hai, flying kites bhi aata hai, sab aata hai. So this is my humble advice. And stop treating design like I cut onions, you cut chilies. Don't do that, yeah. Don't, and then come back and say, oh, the person didn't eat the food because of your plate. It was because my food was nice. So, zameen pe serve karo na.
Call it MVP.
So, karoge kya? Plate is important? No. Oh, my dish is so gourmet. Show me your hand. You're stupid. Don't do that. The plate is as important. Now the cook is saying the plate is not that important. Yeah, you go to a 5-star restaurant and he gives you a stainless steel plate. The guy won't pay you. You have to give that porcelain plate which has got a German craft on it. Which is why looks are important. As important as how it works. Which is why why Indian jugaad is the problem. No, you will put 2 matchsticks into a wire and say, ye plug hai. And then somebody will come and argue, kaam karta hai, jugaad, Indian jugaad, crazy. The first attitude that you have to kill is jugaad. I hate jugaad. Even if the plug is not working, put it in a nice plastic casing first. We'll fix for the circuits later. Install the switches. You know that actually switches are installed first and current connection comes later? How many of you know that? When you build a house?
Makes sense.
Bestcom takes a long time to give you the connection. Now you can't say, pehle connection aane do, uske baad switch lage. No. You first fix for the home. You before Gruha Pravesh is done, you'll do the flooring first. Nahi, main 6 mahine ke baad rehne aayega, the flooring baad mein karte. You don't do that, no? So why design like that? Fit and finish is as important as the thing working. And I have been the biggest evangelist of polish the damn thing no matter what. Polish it. Finger marks are a bad thing. Finger marks are a bad thing. Finger marks are a bad thing. Take that piece of cloth and keep wiping. One day people will understand that is supposed to be clean. That is nice. It'll give you the value. All high gross margin things are designed like that. Just because you eat in the local pani puri wala does not mean your first date you will take the person there. No, that doesn't work like that. So it's important to understand looks and works and feels and success rates and conversion and customer support and like after you've done everything, good UX, good UI, and your payment fails, and you call your customer support and that person takes the phone and says, "Can I able to help you?" It doesn't help. Sorry, I get flustered by this damn thing. I am just good. Still holding up well. I think my adrenaline is up. The more you trigger me, the happier I get. The more trigger me. Yeah. Trigger me.
Hi, I'm Dwani. I work as a UX designer. So I have two questions. I'll ask both of them and then you can answer. So my first question is regarding the first set of questions that were asked you. How do we as a designer try to find meaning in the work that we do? So for example, I've been working in my current job for 2.5 years now. And the work that I get, I do that because I'm good at it, because I've been working for so long. But I somehow don't find that I'm adding any value to this company. Or in general, I feel like every designer reaches that exhaustion point where they feel like they're not adding any value. So how do we get ourselves out from that burnout and maybe do something that is not well paying, but at least makes us feel well as designers?
Wow.
Sorry,
Yeah.
why did you say not well paying?
Because, okay, so I'll be honest, I was a visual designer before I shifted to UX design. The UX designers I work with currently always tell me, Dhwani, you do the job of a UX designer, but you also have to do visual design because you're good at it and we won't bother learning it. So I ended up doing this just happened by chance, and I like UX design, but I always miss visual design. But the sentiment is that you won't be well paid for it. So which is why I mentioned that. My heart is still in visual design, but I just switch jobs to learn more. So,
Sure. That's the second question. You want to ask that later or you want to ask that now?
yeah, that's also quite lengthy, so I think I should answer.
Sure, I'll answer. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, I feel for you. Let me start by saying that it is a. I completely admire the honesty with which you came about in that question. Thank you so much. It's sometimes very uncommon to see that degree of sincerity in saying that, like, I'm good at my work, I do it, but there is some part of me just wants to do something more meaningful for myself. I think it's a feeling that I share. Even in my current job, in my previous job, I mean, is it the most that I always wanted to do? See, look, I'm just gonna speak from a lived experience. I have no advice for you. I have really no answer to your question. But here is what I have tried to do. See, look, there is always that one point where you are becoming mundane. You have achieved a certain degree of ability and craft that you keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again. And the primary problem that I see is, like, we always restrict ourselves that whatever we have to do at our job only. And I did that for a long time, by the way, in my career, because I just always thought my opportunity to innovate or my opportunity to create something was always in the realm of what my job does only. But I met a few very interesting people in my life. So one of the persons that spoke a very similar language to me at Adobe, he was my colleague. He started doing something incredible. He was a photographer. And he was clicking photos and editing them on Photoshop. One thing that he understood was that through his life, he understood 90% of the things that he was doing was just very repeatable stuff on photographs, which is like exposure correction, like contrast correction, some amount of hue saturation levels and blah and all that. Funnily enough, he just wanted to support his photography workflows better. And him and his team built a hobbyist project. And that project is called Lightroom. And nobody wanted that product till it was created. I think whenever you spoke to photographers, they had all their workflow set up already. Nobody even thought that software was needed.
Yeah.
You know what the history is after Lightroom was created. So I'll tell you another example. This is one of my favorites from the current job that I have. There was an engineer that was getting flustered by a performance enhancement that he was doing. So his job was to make sure the loading time was improving. One day he walked up to me, and there's a person called Harish TR in my team, he's a very senior designer, and he said, "Switch off the internet." And he had a snake game on the CRED app. Even today, if you actually switch off the internet, there's a snake game that keeps happening where you just have to keep playing till the internet comes back. We created the most engaging IPL campaign game with that snake game that he created on the product. So what I'm trying to say is, like, your most unusual ideas will come to life when you're bored. And you need to go find them either within the realm of your job or a realm of what you're passionate about. I'm sure you have 5 to 6 other things that you're passionate about. And I'm very glad you're a visual designer. And just go ahead and look outside what your current job is asking you, because like it or not, Dhwani, that is going to be a limiting space, because it is never going to build and develop and expand itself into something where we genuinely want to belong. So my general guidance is, you'll be surprised as to how much more value you will create if you started doing things that you genuinely cared about. And these are not hobbies projects. Like, sometimes what happens is, like, I've seen designers just, let me go and redesign Zomato. I have seen this a lot of times. Let me go ahead and redesign Paytm. Let me go and redesign CRED. Let me go and redesign Swiggy. Like, don't do that. I mean, take a workflow, redesign that, and you'll be surprised. It might just become a product. That is what I would say. Just diversify yourself. Most cliche answer, but diversify yourself. But I think you'll be able to find things that you can create, which will then probably turn into your next big gig.
My second question is more of an observation. People may or may not agree with that. But lately I've noticed that the kind of work we as designers are producing, they're getting patternized. Everything is inspired from something, or everything is similar to something. Inspiration is fine. But I feel like we're limiting ourselves.
Yep.
And producing work that we think is accepted in the industry, rather going out of the box or doing something that will be more innovative, as he mentioned before. So I feel like that we try to do our best based on what our favorite designer does, but we don't want to push ourselves out of the boxes. So I want to understand, why is this sentiment in the industry? Like, all screens look same. Okay, visual design is fine, but I feel like AI has taken over that, and that's also sort of taking off all the credibility of visual designers as well. So
yeah, man. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Sure. We're just monkeys. That's my answer to that. Just monkeys. It's true in a sad but true way. I think we just ape, and I think sometimes we are also mindless about it. Sometimes I go to Dribble, I wonder, where am I? It all looks the same, and everybody wants to be a Kuberto. Everybody wants to be a blah or a blah. But the short answer is, I'll say 2 things, okay? Don't get me wrong, this room. I think there is a, unfortunately, heavy emphasis on solving hard problems. Like, we are generally taught that we are all here to solve hard problems. And if you actually see, many a time we create everything that looks like everything else, primarily also coming from the fact that many a time our problems that we get in our lives are not hard. And when the problems are not hard, what is the next best thing that you can do? You just need to look at something that somebody has created. Looks like this involved XYZ things that he had to do or she had to do, and then we put in there. Sometimes we just need to break ourselves down and say, like, I'm going to take a very simple thing and I'm going to put a very lucid solution to that. And you'll be surprised our solutions will start looking different. And these guys who set these trend mills rolling, no, that's what they do. And if you speak to many of them, I've gotten a chance to speak to a lot of people who actually create this design trends, right? They are not really looking around as to what others are doing. They are just taking something very simple. The problems that they solve are actually extremely, extremely simple. There's a guy called Gleb. I'm sure everybody is aware, right? Like, have you just go search and Dribble. I mean, his principle in life is very simple. He has an interest in fluid motion, and every single day he's trying to evaluate how fluid motion can get better and he keeps, and then you have like 20,000 Gleb clones on Dribble who's actually taking his work and trying to look at it. I think what is important right now is us going back and taking a unit problem, a simple unit problem, and solve it like how we feel passionately about. I think we will actually start creating very different stuff. So, but instead we start monkeying around. We actually want to start look at somebody else's work and try to then belong. I think we as designers have this insane problem of wanting to belong. My mock has to look like that person's mock because that mock is really cool. And I think it's a hard problem to solve. I think, but I think we need to somehow break out of that. And I think I'll be very confessional, right? I have given myself into these temptations. I'm oftentimes personally accused of tailing trends in design. I have done that in my life very often. I'm very unapologetic about it. In my own product that I've built, I have literally gone ahead and tailed trends. But what my learning from that was that, like, in the process, you have to still appropriate that to what you're building, because if you just squarely follow a trend, you'll not be able to build forward. So I think break it down at a thing that you feel passionately about and try to not look around too much. Take inspiration, but if you're just every day starts by opening somebody else's work, then more likely than not you're going to end up in that space only. So, and last thing I'll tell, look at print. It's an advice that I have for all digital designers here. Print has a very unique problem because every issue has to look different from the previous. They really can't do the same thing again and again and again, because every issue they have fresh layout challenges, fresh design challenges, and fresh consumption challenges. And print guys are fantastic to speak to. The biggest thing that I did in my life was to hire a print guy in my team. So many of my notions about design, that guy just made them fly into the air, because print works so differently. And there, see, for example, a guy, and also speak to people who are doing this TV ka, usko kya bolte hai? Those Aston bands on TV, new stickers and stuff like the marquee bands. It's a bloody hard design problem. At a time, there are so many of them running. Then there is an anchor, then there's an ad slot, then there's an inset, then there is a breaking news that comes in, then there's something, and still you have to look premium. You can't look too cluttered. You have to, and it can't look like the previous day sticker. And when there is, like tomorrow, there's a religious event that is happening, they have to figure out for that. So sometimes just speaking to people who are working in spaces that is outside of the digital realm, because honestly, we are always looking at mobile app screens only, When you go to Dribble, what do you search for? You're always searching for another app only. How often do we search for a magazine? Do we search for a fashion concept? Do you search for a mug? Do we search for a chair? We don't. So I think that's another proposal that I have for people to do. But then share your sentiment. I feel the same as you do. I feel the same lack of purpose as you do from time to time. So with you on this one.